talk for. Let everybody asking. Fine.
Review class that time. Then for something.
For something now, okay. It's true. Writing patient. Yeah, so you understand. Yes. Okay, okay.
Okay, something. More or less the longer segment. So, okay, we'll see how it. Okay, so before lunch, we were discussing some of these issues related to the reader in research. So now we will start to see how do we structure our introduction. This is a easy way to structure your introduction in your writing. Paper also said, this is also said. We have the more general section and then we go narrower. Usually, if you want to do a study, you have to do study on it. Also a problem all over the place. So you start about the problem first, then you narrow down to the context of the study. Okay? And then finally, this is what you want to achieve. You have done your that's where the funnel shape. So these research problems must be identified clearly. I already mentioned that now. If you say technology adoption, I have a problem with technology adoption. Technology adoption is a process. So you need to tell me my dependent variable is intention to use or intention to continue using. If you see in the research models, they only put intention. If you actually read, they are not intention to continue using. Not all the time is intention to use, although the term is intention. So you have to be careful. Okay, so for research problem that you want to study, I already mentioned starting one your question at the problem. Study important problem. You must study problems that can do either of these. Theory, in terms of theory, you can do extension. That means you start with the theory, you start adding some variables to the theory. That's called extension. In terms of explanation, you want to see whether the same theory can be applied in a different setting. That also okay. And the third one is your method. That's whether you want to know mono method or mixed method. How do you do mixed method? We are all comfortable with one method. Very happy. That's called one method. This method they will do both. But they both also we have problems. For me, if you do one, do it better. Don't do both and do it better. That's how I approach it. But if you have another collaborator who is good in another method, then you can move it. You're good in qualitative and quantitative, then you can move it. That's one thing you can do. So you see, most of the time we are doing, when we start with the research, we have this term called gap spotting. You understand that? Gap spotting. Okay. So say there's a gap, that's the reason I want to fill the gap. No? And these are some of the terms used. Extend this literature, find fill this gap, address the gap, have not paid particular attention, and call for more and greater. Yeah? And this gap spotting is a very popular way of identifying a problem. And I attended a workshop with Vishwanath Venkateswaran. He was showing a paper by Benton. This paper by Benton actually criticized this gap spotting. They say 80% of the papers published in the top journals were actually doing gap spotting. Why are you doing that? Yeah. But Venkatesh took a different approach. He said, if 80% of the journals expect you to do gap spotting, also do gap. So we should. He said you should do that. All the journals expect you to do gap spotting. You want to publish, right? But you have no choice. Do what people want, right? Okay? So that's what he said. You need to do gap spotting. Yeah? So this is the paper you can read on the homostate framework, how the research problem is tied to all these other sectors. Okay? Later we will discuss one at a time. So this paper can be written. Okay, for research question development, we have two things we can do. One is called get spotting, the other one is called problematization. What is the difference? Is problematization, you are trying to challenge the peer. You can do that. Get spotting and problematization. The first one is you are studying, trying to identify the gap. We have 7 different gaps. There's a guy called Miles. On a silly one. Join the little plan. As a paper published in 2017 by a guy called Miles. Here's nicely identified 7 different gaps. Some of the gaps will overlap. This is what we are doing. We find a gap and then we are trying to say that this is the gap we are trying to fill. That's one way of approaching. The other one is you're saying the theory has some underlying problem. I want to challenge the theory. That also can be done. But most of the time you see papers, they are focusing on the first one, not the second. This is the paper by Sandberg and Albertson. So these are the difference between get spotting and problematization. Okay. So there are some flaws or limited assumptions. Every theory they are developed for a certain purpose. But we are saying there are some issues within the theory. Okay, this is an example of how you problematize. So what they have done is in this paper, they take a different stand. They say most of the studies assume that your relationship between independent and dependent variable is linear. But they argue that it's not. It is non-linear. So I want to challenge the theory here, saying that the relationship is actually non-linear. That is what we say problematization. They're saying the theory has some limited assumption, can be challenged the assumption. Okay. Okay. For
If not linear, can be correlated also, right?
okay. What we are doing now is actually a linear relationship. Correlation, everything is based on linear relationship. But it can be also non-linear. That means that variable you square it for that effect or to the power of 3. Yeah? But we have not done that at all. Our training is every time all the relationships, we assume them to be linear. But now we have a term called robustness test. You claim it's linear. How do you know? Can you test and see? That's where we have another test called robustness test. So you do linear, right? If you run non-linear, the relationship is not linear, then you're confirmed your relationship is linear. Those are called robustness test. Yeah? Okay, for gap, what is meant by gap is the state of knowledge before the research and state of the knowledge after the research. This is what we call as the gap. The difference between your ideal and the current situation. Ideal and the current situation. Okay, why is it this research gap is we want to identify the missing elements. We want to showcase the novelty. This is the term that everybody likes to look at, right? Novelty. What is meant by novelty is what is new in your one. What you are identifying new in your one. And once you have these two, we can identify the research direction or the research approach, whether you want to do quantitative, you want to do qualitative, or you want to do research. Those are the direction. So these are the 7 different gaps identified by this paper called Anthony Marks. This is not called Anthony Marks. This is quite highly cited paper. Many people like to cite this paper. So here are the 7 gaps, right? Different gaps. Okay, some of the gaps will overlap, but the one for those who are doing PhD, you will focus on the theoretical gap. The theoretical gap. That's the most important for a PhD. But when you're writing a paper, you can focus on any of these gaps. Writing paper and writing a PhD, this is different. Okay, so writing a paper, I can focus on number 1, right? Which is called the population gap. What is meant by population gap? Is most of the studies are done with the Western countries. I want to do liberation, which has a different culture, right? Okay? And that is what we call a population gap. Many studies were done at the organization level. They have not done individual level. This is also a population gap. They have done with white people, they are not done with colored people. This is what we call as the population gap. So that can be one of the gap. But sometimes that kind of gap is not original. Research model is the same. So that's why we will focus on the generation gap. So this is the most popular gap in many studies, right? This study has not been done in China, India, or whatever. But here, population gap doesn't give you your contribution. Okay? We can do replication study, right? A model done in Turkey, you want to track them in Malaysia, whether the same result comes out. That's a replication study. There's a contextual gap, right? Different population. We can do that. For a paper, it's okay, but not for a period. Okay? Not for a period. You need to identify a variable based on the population. For example, some people who do study in China, right? There's a term called Quanxing. Relationship. But that variable is actually everywhere. In Malaysia, we call it cable. It's like Quanxing is a cable. How big, small or big cable, right? I have a student from Kuwait. He was talking about the same issue. They call it one star. But the term one star is affecting in Kuwait. So I actually wanted him to look at that variable in his study. He said, "Oh, my boss will kill me." He works in the government. So he's talking about they have actually now done electronic. But what they found is after electronic, the things are getting slow, not fast. And then he brought in the term called one star. If you know the person, you just call the person, things get move faster. But he said, I cannot put that with my thesis. Because that's a bad thing. So because of that context, you can bring in some way. That is what we call as the conceptual contribution. Number two is empirical gap. There are two things. One is conflict in prior findings. Some findings found them to be significant, some not significant, or there's no study that has done empirically. Most of the studies are qualitative. Okay? You have to do empirical. Also, okay. There's nothing new, right? You're saying taking a model there, develop one qualitatively, you want to test quantitatively. Okay. Okay. Number three is the methodology gap. This is where we change the type of methodology. Everybody was doing quantitative, I want to do qualitative. They did with quantitative, they get different result, qualitative, different result. Can we do mixed method? We are now changing the method. Okay. We are now changing the method. Okay. Then there knowledge gap. This one also related to whether there is no knowledge at all or there is limited knowledge, we want to understand better. Okay. So we can also look at different results. Sometimes some relationship they are significant, some relationship not significant. Then we can start adding some variable to make the relationship more consistent. Okay. This is the most important gap when I did PhD. We start with the theory, and then we are saying that theory has some variable that is missing from other literature. We can add those variables to the model. Okay. So that's the most important. Because for PhD is theoretical contribution.
In this scene, what if, okay, for instance, we take the UTA and then we use mixed methods to assess it. Then we find out during the interview session, some emergent themes. Then these emergent themes, we want to convert them into that kind of variable for a projected research again to discuss that issue. What can we justify that based on this theoretical gap? Can we say it's still a theoretical gap?
Still, because we're saying the theory has does not have this variable before. Now we are adding this variable. We want to see whether with the additional variable. When we do quantitative research, that's a term. So you need to understand this. This is the word. Okay, you understand?
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
tetap paham. Good. When we do this kind of models, right, we are trying to predict the variance of this variable. Remember? This variable, it is called the R square. The R square. Previously, the R square was 20%. We had one more variable. Now we can explain that, right? That is why the term squares for additional variable. We add moderator, mediator, whatever. That can explain the phenomenon better by adding this new variable. That's why we do it in quantitative. Trying to explain that. Okay, if you see this theory called technology acceptance model, right? It has only two independent, one dependent. Most of the time, you can explain about 20, 30, 40%. But when you say this is not enough, can I develop UTA, right? That theory added variance about 20 to 30%, 60, 70% now you can explain, but the model becomes more complex. Right? And then you develop another theory called UTA, right? That's a really huge model. Nobody wants to use that.
We use that and we use it with the mixed method now. And we have the margin and
That's the big model.
yeah.
But there's also coming mixed and incorrect understanding. Yeah? I want to explain it. When these theories are developed, they are developed based on context or a boundary condition. UTA was developed for technology adoption at the workplace. At the workplace. UTA is not for workplace. UTA-UT2. UTA-UT2 was developed to explain technology adoption for technologies which are enjoyable, like playing on online gaming, Facebook, that kind of technology. They introduced a variable called hedonic motivation, which is enjoyment.
And price value.
You have to use, let's say, SPSS or your PhD, right? So you enjoy using SPSS. You don't, right? You have no choice. That's why they have the stuff called utilitarian. They are unique to use. But if you are playing game, then you have a choice. Some of the moderators, they actually remove this thing there. Okay, this theory called this theory, right? You see, they have some moderators, right? Moderators, because why they have these moderators? Because at the workplace, you have male and female, right? They have different adoption of technology. Age, right? There are younger people, older people, right? And then experience, there are some more less experience, more experience. And this one is important variable because in some of the jobs, you have no choice. You need to use the technology. In some other job position, you don't have to. So that's why they added it voluntarily. So when they move to the next theory called UTA-UT2, this variable is not there. They added some variable here. They removed this variable because now you want to play a game online, right? Something must force you to play, right? You have your own choice, right? Okay. That's why this is not important anymore. But they added another variable here called hedonic motivation, enjoyment. And they also added another variable called habit. And those are things they added because of the context is not the same. No longer at the workplace.
I find disturbing that that you just put the demographics there and consider this to be theory, because to me there's a very wide variety of demographics. I mean, you talk about hedonism, and you talk about utilitarianism, right? You talk about age, you talk experience, and you also talk about knowledge. So it never ends, right? So incident, what I'm trying to say here is that how can we then consider demographic as a theory, whereas there's so much variable that I can actually put into having the extension, and the extension can be very. That's what I'm trying to.
So what they have done is they have done exactly the sector. This doesn't have one customer. The analytical is that is over like long term. What they have done is And we have scattered many variables on that, and then after some time they found that these are the variables most of the time. The other variables doesn't. Right, so that's how we decided to limit this level. We can start adding on, right?
Yeah.
Problem is too many. We also want to have parsimonious modeling. So he has actually done lots of work with it, collected data many times, right? Then before he finalized the one. First he actually synthesized 8 different theories before he integrated them into one. We read the original paper. Right? So we have done lots of work on this. So this is how the theory develops from U-top to U-top. So if you want to study technology, you may want to speak about UTA, UT2.
That's why we actually are trying to call it the acceptance of AI, which is also in the form of a relationship with some form of unique situation in arts currently. That's our current student
For UTA, UT, the intention is intention to continue. Not intention.
No, we UTA2.
UTA to intention to continue.
Yes.
On the intention. The dependent variables. And people will see that. We can see that. Okay. Okay, so that's the we were talking about that, right? Huh? Okay, number 6 is called the evidence gap. This is also related to conflict in finding that some findings were conflicting. So we can see whether we can add some moderator variable or moderator variable in the yeah. So this is evidence gap. And finally, we have the practical knowledge gap. This gap is related to professional code of ethics. For example, auditors are supposed to be independent, right? But we see a lot of cases like one MTB and Enron, right? They should have picked that up, but why is it not happening? So we have a code of practice, people don't follow. So we want to understand. That is the practical knowledge. Okay? So you can pick any of these gaps. You don't have to have all 7. But when I'm writing a paper, at least one of them must be addressed. As a result. Okay. This paper by Mouse, it even gives you how to write the gap for each of the gaps. Wow, very good. Already 7 years old now. You still have not already 17. Already 7 years old, right? Okay, 8 years old. Yeah. Okay, these are some of the terms they write for the gap. They have not studied it. They have not this question. This is how you can write up some of your research gaps. Okay. So this is an interesting PhD thesis that I examined. Okay. I get PhD thesis from Australia to become exam. The supervisor just Google search my name. The students are doing structural equation modeling. So my name will come up top. Structural equation modeling emulation. For technology adoption emulation, you will see my name at the top. So that's how I ended up being examiner for this topic of research, nothing to do with it. You see, he's doing moral disengagement. This is set up but she identified these 4 gaps. Can you see? This one, can you see this one? What is this gap? You already forgot the gap, right? These are the 7 gaps, right? Okay. So which one? Knowledge gap. Okay, knowledge gap. Okay, so you can see that. And this is how she wrote. Okay. In Malaysia, you write nothing is not. Mine is the first in the world. Right? Okay. Mine is the first in the world. Nobody has done this before. This is the danger. Anyway, examiner will, the antenna will go up. Signal. Here it's little is not. There is some, but not much. Okay. The second one is what dash. Population damage. Population death. Most of the studies at individual levels, not at organization. Okay. The third one is also population factor.
Yeah.
Most of the studies done in the Western countries, not in, so you can see that knowledge and then population. This is the most important one. The theoretical gap. The theoretical. You see now? Most of my students now adopt it. So you write 15 pages, you cannot see the gap. This one is easy to see. This three, we are only supporting actors, the main actors is one. Once you have this, okay, pass. I actually wrote 15-page report for it. And the supervisor was very happy, because the supervisor is a qualitative person. And in Australia, you can only examine it in that university once in a year. Cannot go every week. In Malaysia, you can.
Which leadership theory that you specify here? Leadership theory, there are few.
So this one, you are interested absolutely. What he says that they have not studied this dependent variable by integrating leadership theory. Okay, so she did that. So now she's actually using another theory to explain the same thing. Which theory you are going to see up to you? There's so many. Servant leadership, transformational leadership, there's a long list. We also have lots of debate about this leadership style. Okay? Many people think leadership style is only one. You can have combination, it may be only one. So you need to also classify. That's also a big debate about it. Okay. So, like people want to do transformational and transactional at the same time. I have problems with that. Person cannot be transactional and transformational at the same time. But both the transactional positive, transactional both at the same time. At one time, the leader must be one or the other, right? So we need to classify that kind of debate also. So this is an interesting way of showing the gap. This is the thesis by a lady called Intan Marjita Saidot. I'm given the thesis in the folder. Okay. And then, although there are some gaps, filling the gap is not so important unless you can justify why it is important. Why the gap is important to this. So here is the editor saying, no one previously looked at the relationship between X and Y, but authors never discuss why anyone should be interested in the relationship between X and Y. So the justification is more important than putting the real. So that you can see. So the workshop I attended with Venkatesh, this was the takeaway. I say every time you write your introduction section, you must have two problems. Okay, two problems. Problem number one is called business problem. This business problem you need to contextualize. That means in your location of study, right? Why this problem is supposed to be studied. And like this study was looking at cyberloafing. Cyberloafing is a problem all over the world, right? Okay. But you want to study in Malaysia, you need to highlight why this cyberloafing is a problem in Malaysia currently. Okay. So here we have some facts and figures. This is what many people will look at. So we have some studies done in Malaysia that shows that 25% of your working hours is actually done cyberloafing. What is cyberloafing, right? Yeah. No, you can anything else, not your work. That's called cyberloafing, right? That's 25% of the time. So you're paid for that time. So companies will not be very happy. So if you write like this, companies will be very interested, right? Because they think this problem is big. Okay. Then you can show some figures. So this is why we need to contact for answer. And this is the business problem. Okay. And then we will have another problem called the scientific problem. This is where your novelty comes in. Okay. What are you adding new to the table? Okay. Here they say there are many studies, but the research is fragmented. Now we want to do an integrated model, a more comprehensive model to explain the phenomenon. Okay, so this is your scientific problem. Can you explain better with an integrated model? Okay, so business problem, scientific problem. If you are doing your PhD, this is the one they will ask, what is it? What is it? Right? Not everything new one. Everything new means one behavior. Some kind of right. Anyway, on this two product. Yeah.
I had a personal experience during my PhD where my supervisor asked me, I've written a problem statement and she said, you have to write a real world problem, which I can now relate to the business problem we talked about. But the problem I had then was that I couldn't find the data to back up. So what can a student do in this situation?
Okay, if you don't have facts and data, you can do preliminary. Preliminary.
She suggested that as well, but I couldn't understand then.
Preliminary, that is why I asked. What you can do is you can quickly write a chapter in a book.
That's it. So yeah, you present yourself.
But this chapter in the book is that's written. Remember, you have not started your research yet.
Yeah.
You are saying, okay, we have this problem all over the world, but you are saying this is also a problem in Malaysia, but you don't have facts and data. So you can do a quick survey or interview to show that this is also a problem. Then you write the chapter, right? You are allowed to cite the chapter because this is not part of the thesis. Remember? This is before you start your thesis. Okay, but after collecting data, you run some analysis and then my finding is same as the paper I published for my thesis. Good luck to you. Huh? We also have people like that. No? My finding is the same as my finding from my paper I collected from the thesis. No? You cannot do that. Because it's from the same data. Remember? Finding cannot, no? But you are now writing the background, right? So we can cite the book chapter. Many of my PhD students have done that. No? Because we don't have much data about certain issues in Malaysia.
I mean, if you are talking about data that is known about a certain phenomenon, then don't you think that there's a need for you to do some exploration?
That depends on the issue. Like here we are saying literature is there in other countries, but not in Malaysia.
Okay, so that's a different thing.
So it is, if you have to do quantitative research, you must already have literature to support before you begin start your modeling. Okay, or else you cannot. Or else you should be starting with qualitative. If the phenomena is very different, you should start with qualitative. So this is how we can identify these two problems.
Prof, I just have one thing that's worrying me. In terms of just now I noticed that you put a word moral presentation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what it means by this moral engagement, but in my context, something to do with illegal sort of activities. Is that because again, in terms of research, can research also touch on legal and non-moral type of activities, like for instance, drug use?
We have actually, if you look at the issue like cybertrafficking, most people don't want to report. I also look at internet addiction. Okay, but we have lots of problems with internet addiction, Facebook addiction. People don't want to admit. So if you ask them, do you have internet addiction? They will say no. Okay, but you can ask them the question. What they did was for internet addiction, they have 8-item instrument. They will ask questions, you answer yes or no. Based on that, they will classify you into an addict or non-addict. Okay, so you're not asking them directly, you have this problem. We also have ethical problems, right? Okay. We have a term called deviant behavior.
Yeah.
Deviant behavior.
Yeah.
Deviant behavior is at the office, you take office stationery home.
Yes, very cool.
Some things you do. Correct? You do, right? National paper, pencil, whatever. You say, oh, now I. If it's 20.20, you don't, right? You feel guilty, right? The small item, okay lah. Still deviate, still deviate. That's one behavior. And then we also have sabotaging behavior. That's a big literature on that. And then we have knowledge hiding. You ask anything also, they say, I don't, but they actually know. They see that. And they share it, they keep a bit, so that you go back to him again, right? Knowledge is power, right? Okay. So,
Is it to write a chapter?
so you have to be idiot.
Is
Very, very easy. For us, it's not counted. So I stop doing this. You see, my list, there are lots of papers, chapters now. What happens is there are some publishers which are big name publishers like IDEA Global and Molecular. They have a call for book chapters. You know?
Yeah.
Right. IDEA Global has 300 over book chapters that you can submit to. You need to only submit 2 pages. First, okay, this is what I plan to do. What the editor will do is they put the chapter in 2 chapters. And finally, they will push for you to get accepted because they already 9 pages, remember?
Yeah.
From don't need data.
From the 90s, you asked them a lot of lecture wanted as a supervision officer because public knowledge. Last time, it's not like it's not. It's not sorry. I'm going to say.
That's what I'm talking about. Those were the days. Those days you don't have anything, also you guys will say professor. Now they have different system. Now they have red line, green line, you know. Now in university they have you have M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. All must be green before you can apply. Teaching, consultancy, service to the university and all that. Some people have everything, and now they change the rule. I have a PhD student, very good student, but she didn't apply earlier. Now she wants to apply, cannot apply because she don't have an appointment from the VC. The requirement is to apply, you must have an appointment, a letter of appointment from the VC saying that you're holding this position. So she got that with it. Okay. Previously, we don't have a requirement for consultancy. Now they're saying consultancy, you need an amount, not consultancy only. That's an amount. So now people are getting stuck because they change the rule. So they are the red color to green color. Before you can pay. Previously, we don't have anything. Just apply and they are happy, they give you a hand. They are not happy, they won't give. That was the time. So they learned that. So we can study many of these behavior, actually, yes. But if you're studying behavior like ethical problems, right? Cannot ask them directly. You know. Then we do quantitative research, right? If you have to study like ethical behavior, if you ask them, do you do this? They will say no. They actually do that. So you need to ask in a different way. We have a questionnaire called weakness. Yes, go back to it. Weakness means they give you a scenario, and then they say, John is working in this company. This is the scenario. This is what he did. Okay, do you agree with John's action? You say yes, because you know you, it's John. They didn't ask you directly. They are saying, okay, John did it. Do you think it's okay? You will say okay, yeah, because you are saying John did it. Or you, but you. So it is actually not that asking you directly, but through a scenario. That kind of situation cannot ask directly. That kind of behavior. Right? So we are like the Muslim, right? You ask them to give play like that. Yeah. That kind of social desirable behavior, right? You have to ask in a different way. So we have that kind of weakness. They give a scenario. That's one thing. Okay. This is a good paper for you to refer. There are some bullet points there go up here. They tell you where they are looking at, how you situate the problem in a broader area, up to how you identify your research contribution. I think the investigation also has a good paper in the folder I will check for you. Here's some explanation how you situate the problem and how you identify your contribution. Okay, so this is a good paper for you to looking at. Okay, so why this research problem is important is first, it establishes the importance of the topic. It creates reader interest, and this interest is the important one. So if you show that the company is losing a lot of money because of cyber loss impact, the company will be interested in this impact. Okay, similarly to employees, that is why we need to write this problem statement. Most of the time, papers get sent to review based on your introduction. If you don't write a compelling introduction, papers will not get to review. In a journal I'm editor of called Asian Academy of Management Journal. I will get 90% of the papers without review. 90%. Only 10% goes to review, but about 5% only gets sent. Too many papers. Some of the topics are doing the same thing we were doing like 10 years ago. With nothing new. We need some new insight. Things are changing. Problem will still be the same. Employee performance was there in the 1990s, is still there today. A combination of variables are different. There are some new variables emerging. You have to bring in those variables. So that's where this problem came in. So usually at the end of your introduction, you have the problem being addressed in this study is one. After you have the background and everything, right? You will say this is the problem we are trying to address. But before that, we have some paragraph to explain why this is the problem. Okay, before you start embarking on the topic, these are the two questions you need to answer. Can you study the problem? For those who are doing qualitative research, right? You must have access to your research sample. Let's say the company, right? If you don't have access, cannot. Okay. Second issue is do you have the skills? Most of us don't have that skill, right? Qualitative. We have that problem in Malaysia because we are trained from young. I don't talk to strangers. When you talk to strangers, you don't know how to talk, right? You have that check. You ask the question, they say yes. Another question, no. Yes, no, yes, no, that's not interview. The person must be able to articulate, right? Yeah. And we also feel comfortable talking to strangers. But the Western people, they have that I don't know what to say. They have that
assertiveness.
I don't know. I actually went for remember the workshop I went for Barra and Kenny. There are several workshops. And early in the morning they have a briefing. Everybody comes to the state hall, let's sit. Then I was sitting there quietly, waiting for the person. One white lady came and sat beside me. Then he started asking me questions and then talking to me like it's only 4 years. So I'm here for the first time. I didn't feel awkward. The way she was asking questions was good. But you see, they don't talk to each other, right? It will take 3-4 weeks before you ask, what's your name? That's the culture we have. So not easy to do interview. Then you on the recorder, they tell you different things. Everything very good. Only everything no good. That's another problem. Different countries different. On or off, they will tell you no good. They have a strong opinion. Remember? That's why it works. But here it's more. You have that.
From in Malaysia, when we have good supervisor for fixed method.
That's the difficult question. I'm not very difficult, but just one guy, but he has already left. Very good guy in this sector. His name is Donny Adams.
He's in Australia.
He's in Australia. He's in a very good university. Business. Very smart guy. Yeah. But that guy is right spark, something like that, a scholarship guy. But he got an opportunity, he made a for some reason. He knows what he ran some workshop. But I don't see any other people who's into mixed. Either they are qualitative or quantitative. Then qualitative people will kill the qualitative people. So I will ask to them, what you want to do? If you are qualitative, then I'm okay. Qualitative don't come in me. Yeah? Then I get into trouble with the qualitative people. Here, that's a divide. Whereas in Australia, they don't care. The qualitative supervisor will supervise the quantitative because they have a system available. So if you want to do your analysis and all, they have statistical center. They give you 5 hours of free consultation, 1-to-1 with the statistician. After 5 hours, you need to pay. 1 hour so much, right? That's the system there. So a supervisor who is qualitative can also supervise the quantitative because they have some system. Here we don't have. That's why the supervisor must know some parts of the study. So this is where his skills comes in. And the second part, you have to decide whether your study will advance knowledge or not. Will it help to contribute to practice?
Yeah, can you study the problem is under boundary of study in the chapter 1?
No, first, before you do the topic, you must decide whether you can do the topic. As a supervisor, you should be able to do that. Today I was also talking about it. Many years ago, I had a person who is working in intern. He was from MBA. I had lots of students from MBA. One of them, I realized this morning. I was his supervisor. I was his co-supervisor. I still remember the topics they did. 3 of them from the same. To the same topic. They had a hard time to much done. So many years ago, I had a MBA student who wanted to do Six Sigma. Okay? And then I asked him a question. Six Sigma. How many companies do Six Sigma? He said, in Malaysia, we have only 6. And then I told him, look for another supervisor. 6 companies, I cannot do quantitative. I don't quantitative. I cannot supervise. That's how we decide. We want to do a topic which is very good, but we don't have sample. Then you have to approach them qualitative. I'm not a qualitative person, so I won't be able to help. But that's how I decide to work with a student. The topic and also whether we can get numbers. Maybe in Malaysia it doesn't work, but if they're coming from China, they have enough. Then okay lah. That's how we decide on the number 1. Can you study the problem?
Do you want to suggest that probably as academics we should now start looking at an argument or discussion about adopting this method in Malaysia as well, the qualitative method?
No, actually, you should. There are many studies you can do mixed method. In Australia, there's very big literature on them. Many of them do mixed methods for BSc. But unfortunately, here we are trained in one, either qualitative or quantitative. So it's very difficult for me to change. I'm already able to write. You're younger, you can try. You can pick up some of these skills. Because you get better understanding when it's simple. Unfortunately, we have only one set of skills.
That's what I'm actually trying to do because I am from a qualitative background. I understand that qualitative is not that elaborate as people have seen it. It's depending on which you want to do. If you want to be a convergent or you want to do a sequential, it depends. So
It's the tabula. Okay, but the problem is you must know both. If you do one also, you take 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, right? You have to do both 16 years. Cannot finish. So I tell them do one, do it back. Finish that. After you do that, when you study, do one. That's a focus plan. Like this saying, when I went to Australia, I realized we can do both also. Before that, in Malaysia, it's divine. Either you do quantity or quality. We don't do mixed at all. But now there are more and more people picking up.
Prof, for qualitative research, can we actually use AI to analyze the themes and quotes?
Okay, this is the question. This guy, Peter Sagan. The problem is qualitative. You're supposed to listen to the interview and then you quote. Not quoting. But now you also become quantitative, right? AI is actually counting how many times this was mentioned. So you actually doing quantitative research. quantitative people have also become quantitative. They're actually counting, right?
Prof. Prof, the current research we're doing that I was just talking about, we actually use AI to analyze. Because when you look at any people also counts and it is accepted.
Yeah, but that's the problem. What I met in Melbourne, they said, we don't believe in this software. They have to listen to the interview, read the transcript, and then come out with the.
We didn't accept what AI gave us point blank. We also
Better don't say.
eventually.
Not qualitative, that's why I wouldn't say anything about it. You say that you can also use AI for picture. But the result is still the same. Now you're counting. You become like a quantitative researcher, no qualitative. That's the difference. In Australia, these guys are like that. These guys should become a quantitative. You decide. I would say. Okay. When you do your research, also you need to identify your stakeholders. Okay. Your stakeholders. And at the end of the study, your finding must have certain stakeholders. Let's say you write your practical implication level, you will target some stakeholder. So this is important. Okay. So we already discussed about this concept of research. And this is an example of my student who did this. She did what we call as foresight experiment, not pure experiment. A pure experiment means you must have a control group, you must have experimental group. But she's doing this in the environment. What she did was she developed advertisement on CSR, and groups were exposed to different CSR scenarios. And then the first one is before, and this one is the second one. So here we have an experimentally generated CSR scenario. Then they are exposed to this. You answer this one, then you expose them to the scenario. Then they answer this one. We have two parts we will understand. Okay. So this is the model she developed. And then once you develop the model, we need to write it. And she actually studied two different airlines. One is the full service. The other one is the budget, Asia and Mars. What she did was she integrated two theories. Can you see it? User and gratification theory and stimulus organism response framework on and the literature on finding. And when you're writing your problem statement, you need to also introduce the variables in your model. Usually people don't write. Suddenly in your research question, you have variable inside.
I come across one that examiner actually said that you are not supposed to print all those variable data because the moment you print the variable data, you are providing a solution. It's no longer a research problem segment. That's the comment I get from all of the examiners.
Okay, what I'm saying is, okay. What happens is like that. We are saying this is the problem we have to solve, and these are variables already studied. Okay. Previous researchers have studied this variable, but I want to study it better by including some variable. At the end of your problem statement, you will introduce the variable you are adding to the
Introduction of the research claim, but not explain the question, right?
Chapter number 1 is not literature review.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are saying previous literature have studied A, B, C, and D, but I'm now integrating variable E. This variable E is identified in chapter number 2. Research there. Okay, but you are bringing them in because you need to write your research question, research objective. Remember? Suddenly you're surprising me, right? I have to go to chapter 2 to read and then come back to chapter 1. My blood pressure already goes. Grade will go down. You realize that? I have to go and do my homework and then come back and say, oh, what variables here? I print out and then put here that way. Here I can see the variables. So we introduce the variables in the. But we are saying previous studies have done some of these variables, but they have not integrated another variable. That's at the end of the study. This is what she did. She has a term called spillover. That means she has a fit between two variables. Okay. Spillover, right? Can you see that? Spillover effect. Okay. And this is a what contribution? methodology, anything. Previous study all do survey, yeah, now I'm doing one time study, okay. And then I have this, anything, where again? Okay. This is the contribution. So that's how, you can show your model and how the model acts to the data. Okay. So once you have done this, then only we will move to research question. This one I'm doing like my undergraduate student. So I do this for my undergraduate. Or else they won't understand. So I am the research model, which is the bigger one. I'm not showing all. My master students also have done that, but they don't understand. These arrows are based on the arrow in the model. In our original model here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And 9. You will have 9 research questions, and these are based on the arrow. I'm not showing all, most not enough space. I don't do everything also. What I've done is here, I'm showing you 1, 2, 3, 4. Part of the model. Okay. So the research question, these are the way we write research question. And there are some key terms. Okay. Don't write what. When. Who? Question number 1 to question number 11 is question number 11 is what. No need to read also, I know already what. Can you change the term? So we have this here. These are some of the keywords you can use for your research question. Okay. This one, any of them. So don't use one keyword for everything. Okay. So that's what we want. So here we have how, when, what, and what. So this is how we can write the research question. The research question should end with the question mark. Many people don't understand research question ends with the question mark. It's a research question, but it's a statement. Cannot. No? Research question is a question. And then you have a research objective, right? The research objective will match the research question. Okay. So this is how we work. So after you write the 4, these are the 4 matching research objectives. For research objective also we have some keywords, examine, investigate, study, determine, right? These are some of the keywords you can get from it. There are many available, so you need to use them for mapping. Okay. So that's how we write. So this is your matching from your research pattern and research objective. Oh, not this one. I think I will not do that. And I'll show you later. So this question for research pattern, for this objective, they must be met. This is how we write in our department. I'm not sure about you understand?
Pretty much should be the same. Pretty much the same.
Because in some places, some examiners don't like, majority thing, like. Say, can you write the objective in general? I want to identify factors, influencing whatever. And then your research question more specific. That's an option. Okay, because later when you do chapter number 5, you need to, when you write the chapter number 5, you need to answer all these research questions. Okay, so your research objective can be general. Research question must be specific. Because the research question, later they will become your research hypothesis. And your research hypothesis in chapter 3, chapter 2, you need to test in chapter 4. And then you have to bring it back in chapter 5. They're all related, remember? So research question can be detailed, your research objective can be grouped together. Some examiners suggest that, but I like to be certain. And there's a choice you make. Right. Okay.
Prof, I should know the right to know. So in fact, this all term, I have experience by saying that no, if you identify a no, then you have to justify you identify. If you have some describe why you justify why you describe. So that's why who of what could be lah? They're asking you want or you want. If you say that all you can say. So now, Prof say that no, we should make some which supposed to.
No, but DSP is a different, I see it, yes, different. Establish, describe, determine, estimate, develop, all these are, they're saying you can use, them, like, the mapping, question and objective, right? So we can do this, this is from, by Saunders, I think,
But having said that, it's not wrong, right? So student would put all two together.
student from China, all like, all
It's not wrong. Hopefully that's what they do.
Yeah, okay, I don't know. So the exam is okay. I so, don't enforce too much. I tried telling my children, but if they repeat, then okay lah. If the examiner don't pick up, that's okay, yeah. They're also okay. So, but you can do this, Okay, next we have the significance of the study. These are the stakeholders. Most of the time I see this problem in thesis. When you write significance of the study, you usually write the theoretical and practical contribution. That comes in chapter 5. I have a personal problem with this, but everybody accepts it, right? All examiners are very happy with it. So my students tell me, my examiner also wants it. Okay,
Yes.
that's all I can say, right? This section is saying, okay, after I do this study will benefit who? That's called the stakeholders. But unfortunately, many people like to write the theoretical and practical contribution, right? Like this. Okay, and then we have a scope of the study. The scope of the study is who will be included, who will not be included. You have to write it down. Don't use this as a limitation data. One is a choice you make, right? I want to study only small and medium companies. I don't want to study large companies. Okay? So you can decide. Like here, they want to study only people with average ability, not the one high ability or low ability. Okay? So we can do that. Okay, we also have the definition of key terms. We have two kinds of key terms. One is called the dictionary definition. And the other one is called the operational definition. In chapter 1, you need the operational definition. As the examiner, I will map your operational definition to your instrument in chapter number 3. Okay. They must map, because for instrument, we have unidimensional measurement. We have multi-dimensional measurement. The definition will differ. Okay. Will differ. So we need to do the matching. So I usually like to have one definition from one author. Where do you take it from? This is an example that I would like to see. Not very long, right? Really short explanation. Then we will have another section called organization of the PC plan at the end. So this is the problem. So we have another example of Facebook. You said that I want to study why Facebook is not so good. So this is leading to productivity losses and strained relationship. And we can show some figures like this, right? How many billion losses is written, right? Also we have some, and then we can show something wasting time on Facebook. This is the amount of time they are studying. I've also done studies here. We found 25% of the time is on surfing for non-work related. And you can also show what they are doing with it. Most of the time is connecting with others, looking for a job, that kind of thing. So, and we have the model. So this is the research model we developed. Later I will also talk about this issue called contribution, right? Okay. The basic theory is called PBB. Can you see? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. This is the basic. We added this level. Okay. This is the contribution. Okay. You can add this way, you can add the bottom, you can add moderator mediator. That's why we started to do. What we are saying is attitude is important. Right? You know why you're studying attitude, right? Because you want to know why people use Facebook, right? Attitude is an important predictor of attitude of actual user. So if you change attitude, this will also change, right? But we don't know what affects this attitude, right?
Yeah, the comment I have here is that we are talking about behavior here. Shouldn't there be intention instead of behavior?
So this one, people are already using,
They were using it.
they are already using.
So this is no longer TPP, right?
Certificate.
It is a modified TPP.
No, you can study CPB with intention or CPB with action.
Behavior is after intention.
Yeah, but these are people already using the technology, so we don't study the intention, I drop lah. So we study actual behavior. But this one will lead to this. But we are saying we don't know what influences it. That's why we want to study it. So to change the attitude, I will do this. If these two are important, then if I change this will change. Right? That's why we move this way. We are trying to explain it. Okay. So we are adding some variables to explain. This is how we start to extend the model from the original theory.
Just a question. Let's say, how do we know when to environment? Let's say when we something like gamification. So when did that be? I mean, how do we know?
So you look at the identification. We can do two ways. One is with or without gamification. And you can do one thing without it. One group is exposed to gamification. Another group is not exposed to gamification. But you can also put gamification like here because it will influence your attitude. It will not influence your subjective norm. Right? Subjective norm is people around you, what they think about this. This gamification can influence your own attitude. It will not influence this variable as well. That you should know. So that's why we need to see the literature first before we put it in the variable way. Now this part is already there. So you can look at other research that has done gamification. What variable they use to predict.
One more question. Sorry about that, but in terms of theory, are you still sticking one theory?
Yeah.
Are you still sticking one theory?
Yeah.
But if you are sticking one underpinning theory, then how do you explain things like safe employment collection usage? Or do you need to add more theories to it?
So you don't need because the basic theory is still there. We are adding some variable from the literature. Right. So the basic theory is still there. I would like that. Because if I want to bring in 10, I need to have each of you useful, which is not in the month.
How to justify of the framework that Trump and the relationship with it? Because there are some basic theory to justify or just based on the literature itself.
Literature because you want literature to live in.
I know literature is not okay.
I only read literature this one. In other studies, they have also studied trust and attitude. Maybe their dependent variables different, but I don't care. What I need is the relationship between trust and attitude. Literature that support this.
That's why some of the disease, they have 2, 3, 4 degree because they try to not
This variable theory A. This one theory A, theory B, theory C, theory D. I should become no examiner. I should repeat this many times. Theory is a collection of variables, not one variable. Not one variable. This is one variable, remember? The theory is still here. The theory is still here. This is the variable you are adding to explain better. You don't necessarily need another theory. If you say you want to integrate, all the variables in that theory you must integrate.
Both variables we actually
Something.
because variables actually come up with the hypothesis marks. Correct.
I explain to you concept, construct, and
okay.
we have another. This time we are saying this already literature linking trust to attitude. Okay. The other problem I see with many students is, let's say I want to look at Facebook, right? They look for literature on Facebook. Okay. You are not interested in Facebook, the contact with Facebook. But what I'm looking for is literature to link with variables. Doesn't matter what technology they use, it can be used as the literature. Okay? You want literature to support the relationship. If most of the literature say positive, you also write positive lah. That's why you look at the system. Not the context. Okay, not the context. Okay, so these are the 4 questions based on data. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? These are the 4 questions, and then I have the 4 research objectives, and then I will have the left and right now. I think I reversed the example, right? So these 4 questions and research objectives they are met. Okay. I actually did this for my master student because many times they don't understand that. If I show them separate, but I do not show them separate.
Research aims is not needed, right?
It's under purpose, in your introduction, you also write that. Purpose of the study is one.
What about mediation or moderation? Can I have just one research question on mediators, mediation and moderation? At the same time for RO, I have this, that question is actually broken down
Question.
4, 3 or 4.
I usually like research objective, you can combine that. Research question match indicative.
So you bring up the research questions, but objectives you
Objective is combined. Because they say I want to study the mediation effect. Objective is to study the mediation effect. So under mediation have 3 relationships.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Later they will become hypothesis.
Yeah.
Because hypothesis will be based on your research questions.
The thing, right, for mixed, sorry, is there something about this method? Because when we forming the research method, they actually say that question it does equality.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of the examiner, even some, I read some of the, this one, they say, the research question, sometimes you have to use some word, is specific for quantitative, some is specific for quantitative.
Why?
Like I say, why not quantitative analysis? How still okay for quantity or quality or not? So it's the thing that some of the when I play some of some of the examiner mentioned like this.
You have many types of examiners.
Yeah,
But I just go into them.
okay.
You already have a methodology, right? If you still want to do mixed methods, you must have a research question for the mixed method. What they are doing is actually quantitative or qualitative, but they are driven by different questions. Quantitative is like this, qualitative may be different. Mixed method, you must have another research question for the mixing part. I'm sorry, language. That what is the term?
So then I mix what into the 7 chapters and movie assignments.
Depends, they have a qualitative finding, then the mixing.
Depends. You are not sequential.
1 chapter, 1 year, 7 years. Not necessary. Okay, significance of the study, I like to write like this. You see, I'm trying to tell my study will benefit who. I actually write this for my undergraduate and master student because oil they don't understand. They mix everything up. So I give them an example. This is the model. This is the research question. This is the research objective. This is how you write each part. Then what I normally do is for my undergraduate student, I will give them a research model and a research questionnaire. They will need to go and collect data and they will backwards to write chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. They have to collect data, they have to run analysis. Second year, first semester, 360 students in my class.
Individuals.
No, group. 5 people in a group. So I give them 6 topics. They will download, okay, and then run the analysis. So if you want to try out, you can use it. We go to my web page. Yeah. Okay. I actually have my own website, which I started, in the year 2000. I have a domain name called www.ramayana.com, which I'm still maintaining. This is already renewed up to 2027. So everything I put here, my publication, my research. So if you scroll down, you will see this. This is the course I've been teaching for many years. Research method. So under this research method, you will see lots of resources. Okay. And you see here? Okay. So what happens here is I give them the 6 topics. Every semester I change, or else they copy paste. They have the next question. So every day I change the topic, so they cannot copy. So I give them this part, right? This will have the questionnaire, will have the instruction, will have some papers to start them off for the theory and all. And I also tell them what theory to use. What they will do is use the questionnaire already given to them. However, they want to collect data up to them. 1%, 25 questionnaire. They will have one group 125, they can run multiple regression. In GSM, we only run multiple regression because SPSM is free for also. They will run the analysis and then start writing the report. So they learn how to collect data, how to collect the data, clean the data, everything. I will teach them the data class. This is my past year question. I give my student the past year question with answer. All answer. I can download it. Still they don't do it. Question is model answer. No? Past lecture gives you like that. Okay, but I give them the model answer. But still many people struggle. I don't know why. The same type of question. I never take that. So you can download it. Previously we were teaching in Malay. At the bottom you see the structure in Malay. But now we are already in English. Okay. Many people like to attend my bookshop because my slides are very nice. They are sitting. That's a good thing. Okay, so this is the research project you can look at. The question is already formatted nicely for them. You can actually start with collect the data. So these are the topics I can work on. So you can ask them to do any topic you want, the one you like. Sometimes you can use the data for your own study there, because you can actually collect the data and see what's there. So in one topic, there will be 6 groups or 7 groups. Data set is very large. But you have to also be careful because some of the students don't collect data. They don't know how to manage it. But I want them important. Okay, so that's how we can write about the significance of the data. And then you see the definition of treatment. I like to have one. All the variables in my model, I have a definition. Okay, so they are also following it. And I put this down. I'm defining this. Okay, I'm defining adjective, right? This is the variable I'm defining. This is the variable I'm defining. This is the variable. All these variables you need to define. You have to define additional variable, it's fine. But this variable you need to define because later I will take this and look at your question. Whether the definition matches your question. Okay. Organization of the result. Right. So this is what I usually tell the students. If you don't give this, you cannot see that.
From research question first or research question later was fine.
This one, some people write objective first, question later, or question first, objective later. That's a choice. We don't have a fixed rules for that. Okay, any question on the first part of the discussion? Okay, next we want to move to another part called thinking like the researcher. This is the most important part for a quantitative researcher. Okay? This is where we will look at terms like variables, construct, concept, right? Now there was a question. If you are the better types, so that you can compare, you understand this like that. Okay, we have a term called research paradigm. How many of you are familiar with this? Okay, many people are not familiar, right? Okay. I only became familiar with this when I went into University of Melbourne, 2011. Before this, in Malaysia, when you write chapter number 3, I want to do quantitative. Why? I don't know. Because my supervisor is quantitative. Okay, my supervisor has become qualitative. It is not like that. It's not like that. Yes. Research part is driven by philosophy. You are doing doctorate of philosophy, right? But you don't have a philosophy, yeah? You already got from that. You are doing doctorate of philosophy, but you say, I don't have a philosophy, yeah? And I'm doing doctorate of it. Great, right? I also realized this when I went to Melbourne. Before this, every time you see chapter number 3, I want to do quantitative, because I don't know any other method to be one thing. You must have a reasoning. That's what we call as paradigm. Okay? Paradigm is a combination of 3 things: ontology, methodology, and epistemology. Yeah? So the same problem can be approached in a different methodology. Yeah? So you need to decide which one you want to approach. Right? Okay? These are some of the terms you get. So I've given you this book. Right? Creswell and Creswell. This is like a God in mixed method. That's one of God. You don't know his name, something's very wrong. I'm not. I know the name. Okay. Anybody asked me, I think, okay, please read this guy. That's right. Okay. Yesterday also I was sharing it. As a supervisor, you must know the terminal articles from people in your area. For example, my area, I have a plot called Davis. And Davis developed that, right? And then we have Venkatesh. If you don't know this name, something is wrong with you, as a supervisor. If you are doing structural equation modeling, we have Ringler, Sark, and Hare, right? And these are names you should know. We are doing modulation, mediation, we have Agminis, we have Barakani, right? These are like seminal papers you must know. Okay? So this is for mixed science. We have written many papers. I have attended some webinars, 3 webinars by a publisher called Sage. You know? Yeah. They have 3 webinars. Really good speaker, very steady. And you should listen to his explanation. Okay, so this is the terms used for research paradigm. So we can divide the research paradigm into ontology and epistemology. Yeah. Okay, we have this paper which is very good. So I think you should share with everybody in your department so that they understand. This is a very good paper on the role of theory and business management in India. So I really like this paper and I share it with all my master students. I tell them you must read this paper. So what they have done is they have defined the philosophy, ontology, and epistemology. So this philosophy, we can divide them into positivism, interpretivism, and pragmatism. These are the 3 main ones, but they have some one. So I will not go into it. And then ontology and epistemology. What is meant by ontology is the nature of reality. Yeah? What is nature of reality is only one reality or multiple reality. That's nature of reality. Yeah. The second one is called epistemology. Is what constitutes acceptable knowledge. There are one group of people who are saying everything can be measured. Another group of people, not everything can be measured. Some need to be observed. That is what is called epistemology. Yeah. So if you are in positivism, which most of us are, right? Okay? We are saying that's only one single reality. Significant, not significant. You look at the data, also same data. Another person look at the data, also same data. Cannot change. That's why it's called single reality. One reality. Yeah? Okay. The epistemology is reality can be observed and measured. So any study you want to do in quantitative, you have variables, right? This variable must be measured. If you cannot measure the variable, cannot. That's the first thing. That's the idea of positivism. And the other extreme is called interpretivism. This is saying that reality must be developed based on the culture of observation. So one person looking at the phenomenon, he will come with a different solution. Another person looking at the data will come with a different solution. Because it's multiple reality, based on your upbringing and so on. So that's this one. So here we are saying that it's multiple reality and the reality is complex. It must also be tied to the context of yourself. Okay. Here the epistemology is not everything can be measured. Okay. Not everything can be measured. Some need to be observed. Okay. So in qualitative we have what we call as phenomenology. I go and stay with the one actually in the jungle. They have to be able to that. Then they have to live with them and then explain what is happening. So ethnography, ethnography. We have Korean people who go and stay in Indonesia to observe the Korean way. You know Korean way? There's a Korean way, right? Many people like to watch the Korean drama, right? And now they follow the Korean. In Indonesia, you are not supposed to wear slippers at home. You know, also we don't wear slippers at home, right? But in Indonesia, what they found was people who follow this Korean drama, they wear slippers at home. But they follow the Korean drama. But if you ask them, oh, no, our culture cannot wear slippers at home. The house cannot wear slippers.
Dirty slippers, yeah.
No, that's the mental. Previously, if you don't wear slipper at home, that's the culture, right? Cannot slipper must be outside. We go in with our normal. But now we have slipper at home also, right? Because we follow some of this culture. So that is coming from the experience living with adults. So that kind of study also can be done. So this is that. Okay, the first one is called pragmatism. This pragmatism are people who say qualitative has its problem. Quantitative has also its problems. Both have problems. There's no one rule fits all. So you need to understand, and now we want to be halfway. This is where the pragmatism people come in. This is big center. So these are the three main philosophies. Which one you want to follow is up to you. I'm the first one. Fortunately, yeah. Many of us are because of the trading. So we need to blame the training as well. Most of our undergraduate programs in the country is quantitative. They don't expose to qualitative or whatever other. So that's the drawback. Okay. And then we have this term called theoretical and conceptual framework. I actually don't like this discussion. Sometimes you have this problem. In Malaysia, you will discuss this half an hour during one. You have a theoretical framework or you have a conceptual framework. To me, it doesn't matter. Conceptual framework is your model. Theoretical framework is the theory you use to develop the model. That should be clear. Okay. Then we have the methodology, right? Quantitative, qualitative method, and then we have also the thinking style. We have deductive, inductive. In between, now we have another one called abductive. How many of you are familiar? Abductive rhythm. Abductive rhythm. Abductive. Welcome. So this is the main three ones. Pragmatism, we try to match the best based on our requirement. Okay, here we have this mixed method. These are the design given by what is called convergent parallel design, where we use quantitative and qualitative data at the same time, and then we start comparing. Okay, not many people do it. The one very popular is this one: quantitative followed by qualitative, or qualitative followed by quantitative. Both sequential design. One is exploratory, the other one is exploratory. Yeah. In mixed method, you don't have to have 50%, 50%. You can also have 80% here, 20%. So you don't have to have an equal percentage for your study. That's a choice you can make. Number 4 is embedded design. Number 5, number 6, very similar. Qualitative, quantitative, and then mixed method. I don't, so you will ever do it, right?
So it's considered action research.
I don't know, but multi-paper. I'm not seen anybody doing this. This is a bit more values. Okay, quality. Okay.
One.
Then we have this method. We have this mono method, multi method, and mixed method. Mono method is when you do only one set here, quantitative or qualitative. Finish. Multi method is when your research question 1 is quantitative, and research question 2 is qualitative. Okay. It's also I usually chair my one and from education school. They do question 1 quantitative, question 2 qualitative, and then they claim that they mix it. Then I ask them, where did you mix? Oh, no, in our area it's like that. Oh, yeah. And then one more thing is, they have the hypothesis and research model in chapter number 1. I said, hello, even discuss the literature is already a hypothesis. And then the hypothesis is there is no relationship. Study lah. I said, in our school, this is the norm. So I said, okay lah, to do whatever. But basic understanding, right? If you have research question 1 quantitative, research question number 2 qualitative, you are doing multi method, not mix. Not mix. For mixed method, you must mix the findings. That's the term triangulation. Venkatesh meant data, meta inference. This meta inference is by mixing them together, you get a better understanding, which you won't get when you do them separately. So you must mix that now.
Can the method be applied to situation where you conduct experiment and then followed by quantitative study? You consider that as a multi method?
We can. The way we design, we also now have some people doing structural equation modeling. After that, what they do is they do test mixing. But this is qualitative criteria. So you actually bring both, but you are not actually mixed. You can mix them together, find which is from the quantitative you get finding, the quantitative you get.
I'm not talking about qualitative, but I'm talking about quantitative. Experiment on the findings, then you confirm that to a confirmatory study actually interpretation.
That one I'm not very sure. I'm not thin. Because both are quantitative, right? Yeah. One method is the same, quantitative method and qualitative.
Multi method. In the primary data also quantitative field data, we consider as multi method. If we collect, we also collect primary, also collect secondary data.
No, that's not multi method. That's not multi method. That is for validation. For validation. That's not multi method. Okay, like this. Let's say we do qualitative. Okay, let's say we do this model. Therefore, from the qualitative finding, we get this model. After we do this qualitative study, we get these 4 independent variables, 1 dependent variable. Okay. How do you know these 4 independent variables will be important? This is from the qualitative finding. Okay. So what we can do is now we do it quantitatively. Collect data quantitatively. And after we collect the data quantitatively, we find that only this variable and this variable is significant. Now you get a different finding, right? The qualitative says all 4 important, but your quantitative no, only 2. So in that, now I have a better understanding, right? Mixing them together. This is what is meant by mixed method. Okay. So if you are doing this quantitative, after you run it, you see some variable not significant, right? We can do a focus group to understand why this variable was not significant. Now we have a better understanding. If you don't do that, you try to explain based on your own understanding. Remember, when you do quantitative, some relationship not significant, right? But in your discussion, you say these are the possible reasons. But we don't know, right? We only think they are correct. But if we are doing focus group, we can get some answers from the focus group because answer the first. We can also do that. Okay, so that's why the mixing comes in. Okay, so we have this deductive and inductive process, right? Okay, so we have for those who are doing deductive modeling, right? There was some code. I usually have to screen when I do online. I have a very big screen. Can you get how big my screen? Okay. I usually have three screen. In my office, I have a very large screen. Can you guess how big is my screen?
48 or
43 inches. 43. Then I have a laptop. So I usually do this and then I see the comment on the laptop. So I will answer simultaneously. I have only one. Okay. So here when we do this process, those who are doing quantitative, you start with the theory, you are trying to explain back. Okay, it's qualitative is you start with the observation, you come up with the theory at the end. Now, what is meant by theory at the end is the research one. Okay, so this is the process. So, okay, if you start with this observation, and then from the observation, you straight away go to explanation. This will be inductive. But if you start with observation, you collect data, analyze, and then explain. This is what we call a deductive process. Let's say we switch on the light. We switch on the light and the light does not come on. What is your explanation? What is the explanation? Okay. Policy. Policy. Okay. But you repair the switch, still no light. So now you are wrong, right? This is where the inductive process happens. By observing, you come up with an explanation. What are the explanation you have? Okay. Blackout, power, right?
actually wrong connection.
No power next door, but electricity or something. And finally, you decided you need a pay it. So now we are listing the possible alternative, right? Then only we collect data and see. This is deductive. Okay. So inductive problem is sometimes the solution may not be correct. Okay. That's one of the concerns in deductive thinking. So this is the process that we go through. We start with the theory and then we develop the hypothesis based on our research model. We collect data and then accept results. This stop here, right? This is no method. One method. And then we do qualitative, we start with the observation. Then we try to explain with the model here, right? We stop here, right? We don't know whether the model works. That's monomethod. Monomethod. So we have a third one. This is called the inductive research. The inductive research is based on observing real world problems here. From here, you try to come up your research one. Okay. Here we are using a theory to explain the problem in the real world. Okay. This here we are both ways. We actually look at the real world problem, look at the theory, and try to meet halfway. That's why we call that abductive research. Both ways. This is qualitative, this is quantitative. The third one is method. Okay. Any question? Another, I didn't come across this before I went to Melbourne because the The problem with most of us is we read selectively. Read selectively, yeah. You only read to justify whatever you want to know. Anything outside you don't, right? That's a problem with us.
What do you call a situation where you do, an exploratory study followed by retreat and then followed by experimental? That means to say that explore, find out the findings and then confirm. And then for confirmation, just like what you mentioned, there's the discrepancies there, and then you explain.
Maybe you can look at multi-phase.
Multi-phase, that's something.
I'm not done study like that. I'm not done mixed method. None of my students want to mix method. Also, I tell them, if you can try, yes. But they say everybody is doing it, but they why you ask me to mix method. So, okay, let's one.
And why don't you?
Yes.
I said, when why don't you?
Yeah. Everybody is doing the same thing, right? So they're very happy to look at the sample and all. But once you do mixed method, you don't have a sample. That's a problem with okay, here we have this picture, right? Based on the picture, what will happen next? Okay, most people will say the person will fall down, right? But the person can also land safely, right? Okay. So that is where the deductive reasoning comes up with the alternative. Whereas in deductive reasoning, you are jumping to the based on the observation. Okay. So for language of research, we have this term. This is where this term called consent method. Just now they were asking here. Okay. Based on your understanding, which one is more abstract, consent or consent? Already after that is smile. So you're not very confident. Okay, concepts are more abstract. Concept become more concrete. Variable is the most concrete. That's the level. Okay. And why this is important is some of these concepts are learned through our shared understanding. Okay, that's why we need to have this. Okay, these are some of the terms used for consent. So we can divide the explanation from consent to variable. That's how you ask it, right? Okay, consent is the most abstract. Okay. Example, we have people, right? You know what is people, right? No, generally they know people. Right? Now we are talking about gender. We understand gender, right? So the level of abstraction is very different. Okay, but gender can be measured differently, right? We measure only male and female. But in Western countries, they also measure gender, masculinity, femininity. So the same variable can be measured differently. That's why we call them construct. Okay. Here, how do we measure variable? Male and female. These are the two categories in the gender. Okay. So that's become more concrete. Same with here. When you talk about engagement, you understand what is engagement, right? When we say job engagement, it becomes much more clear. How do you measure job engagement? This is the method. So that's the level. And this was actually from English, very clear explanation. I actually use this slide now. This slide is actually from the book called Schindler. Okay. So I already explained consent first, and then we have a concern. Okay. See? Okay. By this explanation was very clear. This level, can you see? Quite clear. So this is how you start with your concept first, and then how you actually measure. What we have presented is here, right? This now is asking variable. So we need to know how to measure this variable. Okay. We have uni and multi. Uni means you have item to measure the construct or variable. Multi means you have dimension to measure. This is multi-dimension. We have 3 dimensions. The same variable can be measured uni or multi. That's a choice you make at the result. Later. Okay. When you look at this picture here, the guy is telling the lady, let's go multi, right? Okay. The lady is thinking about the disco only, right? What is the guy referring to as parking?
Something else definitely.
Yeah. Well, last time we had a Tupperware party. You have to know how to open all the Tupperware, right? You have to pick the Tupperware. No more already. And I was younger. Okay, this is the party, yeah. Can you see the expression of the lady? She was expecting a different party. And this is the main problem in survey research. Many people don't understand it. Huh? The same term will have different meaning to different people. Okay? So this cannot happen in survey. Yeah? So that's why we need to have clear items to measure and so on. Okay? So we have a term here. Okay, we have a term called the gun, right? The gun. What is the understanding of the gun?
Shy.
Betul. I also have the same understanding. When I came to USM first year, I had a roommate from Kedah. So and I was telling him, roommate, let's go to the library. And then he answered me, Segan. My eyes was like, yes. You come to the university, right? Why are you shy going to the library? And then he said, roommate, in Kedah, when we say Segan means he is lazy. First time in my life, after 20 years. The same term Segan has two meanings, the northern part and the southern. In the southern part, everybody knows this is shy. But the northern part is lazy. Can you imagine? Your questionnaire asked by Kedah. So these are the problems you need to understand. And that's why before we collect data, we need to do the pre-testing, pilot testing, so that people understand the terms clearly. This is the biggest problem in your questionnaire. Remember, when you collect data, later some of the item doesn't work well, right? Because they didn't understand the question. Many people didn't understand the question. That's why we need to have clear definition. Okay. Operational definition is how you actually will measure your vehicle. So here we have year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, right? Many of the year. If you ask any student, what year are you in? They will tell you year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, based on the physical year. But the university doesn't have that. The university uses a number of credit credits. So if you have less than 36 credits, you are still considered year 1. Although you're already in year 3, yeah? Because you fail many courses. You are able to be right. Okay. In USF, we don't have that. Okay. So if you have 36 to 70, you become year 2. In the results, they will put year 2. We go by the number of units. So the same year can be measured with physical year or the number of units. So the person answering must understand this. That's why operational definition is important. Okay. That's the number 1 you will have this now. Okay. If you are expected to develop your own instrument, this is the process you need to go through. Okay. You start with the construct and then the operational definition. Sometimes you have dimension and then elements. So what it means is like, we want to measure learning. Learning has 3 dimensions: understanding, retention, and application. To measure application, we have 2 items. To measure retention, when 1 item, understanding 2 items. This is how you develop instrument. If you need to develop your instrument. Anybody doing instrument development? Very rare. In our area, usually just adopt another.
Because of the new team like Discover.
Unless you want to develop your own skill, then you have to follow ratio sets. There's an author called Churchill. Everybody's mentioned his name. Churchill. You want to develop the. So I usually like to create it. We have the concept, right? Organizational commitment. This is the definition, and this is the instrument. And to measure this variable, we also have different instruments, right? You need to decide which instrument you want to use. Like organizational commitment, we have Modi. Because Modi has 15 items, one dimension. We call them unidimensional. We have another author called Allen and Mayer. They have 3 dimensions: effective commitment, normative commitment, continuous commitment. Okay, so different authors have different way of measuring a construct. You need to know that. Which one you want to use it up? Okay. Any question?
So, when there's on way like say operating organization, they can't understand. But say the keyword to develop survey question are they know. Can you use the word and especially for the analytic. Now for the instrument operation this word if I mention about instrument we teach many times also they can't understand. But we say keywords then for develop survey question.
The easier way is like this. We want to measure weight, right? What instrument do you use? Weighing scale, right? That's the instrument. But you now want to measure commitment, cannot use an instrument. So the instrument is actually objective or subjective. These are subjective instruments. Toxic, we call it. So that's the same. We are still using the same term called instrument, but objective or subjective. But this is how I like to see in a day. Easier to see. For students.
Normal work in chapter 3, right?
Yeah. Chapter 3, right?
In instruments and skill development, at what stage do you think we can actually conduct the CFA? Or is it necessary we also conduct an EFA?
Yes, must do EFA. Yeah, we can do CFA.
Or if we conduct the CFA, we already got what it is. All right.
Because you don't know how many dimensions are there. So usually for skill development, we start with EFA, then only we do CFA.
Is it a?
No. This one you are saying I want to develop a skill for learning. How do I develop is based on it.
So it's not applicable to.
In the folder that I gave you, you have this under the folder called TC, you have this KS scale. Under the folder we have TC, right? You have this KS scale, right? You see? Okay, this is the PhD TC. This is actually a paper from a PhD TC. Paper I was sharing with you. And this is the lady called Janet. What she did was she actually developed a scale to measure knowledge sharing. And this one took us 7 years. In the US, 2 years is comprehensive. You need to do password and you need to pass. If you don't pass, they will ask you to go back. If you pass, then you become first year, first year PhD student. For the first 2 years, no one. So you need another 45 years. Then you have PhD. Not very easy. That's why not many Malaysian students go to US for PhD. We go to UK directly, because straight away you become a doctor candidate. Here 2 years comprehensive. The comprehensive exam in 1 whole day. They will put you into a room, they give you food, everything. You finish your exam, then they get gone. That's called comprehensive exam. That's why they did that. What she did was she developed skills, and this is the process. Okay, now we know why you couldn't have years, not by sitting down under a tree and people think skill development is like that. It's common. First, you have to develop the skills on the literature, then there's a process involved. Everybody cites the literature called touching. So we only have EFA, sample 1, sample 2, CFA, and so on. The process is quite long. So this is the PhD thesis using scale development. This is the paper development.
So here you're talking about literature review, right? I mean, the other way
This one is the procedure in developing a scale.
yeah, no, I understand the skill process, but I'm just talking about from the standpoint. Here you're talking about literature review, but you consider you can also get it from qualitative. Right?
Everybody
I
wants
think
to identify the idea, and then we can
Like what we're doing.
We have also management.
It is qualitative to the migrants.
This is the sample of scale development. Data. Any questions on data? Okay. And next we have variable. So variable, these are some of the variables you have, right? It can be event, can be characteristic, can be attribute, can be trait, can be action. These are all part of variable. And variable must have at least two levels and above. 2 levels and above. Okay. And let's say male and female. Is it available? Male, female, is that available? Okay, it's not. Male, female is a category under available for gender. And available is gender. Available is gender. It has male, female, or you can add category. But minimum is 2. Then we consider them to be available. That's the okay, we have this data, right? Is data available? Yeah, is data available?
Data has no meaning.
Okay, we have another variable. My China student likes this variable. Yes. Everybody has AI. And then I ask them, what is AI? Okay, data is not available, right? Data is not available. Okay, how do you decide variable is the variable must have a meaning when the score is high. It must have a meaning when the score is low. If not, it is not set. Okay, so we have variables like this, right? Data security. This is the variable. I low, right? Okay. We have data quality there. We have data variety here. We have data time here. We have complexity. Many, right? Okay. You have to label your variable clearly. Cannot put data. Data is not available. Similarly, AI. AI is not available. AI is only a term. AI is a stage. It's available. Okay. AI 2, right? Number 2. That is how we will measure. So when you draw a box, you must label them clearly. Okay. That's the first question I will answer. When you have this variable, how do you measure it? That's the first question you will ask at the point in the research. If not, cannot be said. This variable. So we have these 5 variables we will use in our model. Independent, dependent, moderator, mediator, and control variable. The first 2 variables, independent, dependent, these are the terms used in the literature. Predictor, presumed cause, inverse predictor, form, antecedent, manipulator. These are all referring to the same variable called independent variable. This is the term we use for independent variable. Okay, so those are the terms we will use. So these are the 2 main variables we will have, independent and dependent. So independent we can put on the right, on the left, and dependent on the right, or reverse, doesn't matter. The arrow tells you which variable happens first. Okay, in substrate spatial modeling, we call this exogenous. We call this natural distribution, where the arrow ends. Right? So we have here advertisement, budget, and sales, right? Okay. Advertisement, budget, and sales. Advertisement is your independent variable. Sales is your dependent variable, right? So when advertisement goes up, sales goes up. Here, this is independent, this is dependent. This labeling of independent, dependent is not fixed. It may change. Okay. So now we have another model. Sales and profit, right? Sales now becomes independent. Profit becomes dependent. So in one study it is independent. In another study it can become dependent. So it's not fixed. Okay. It's not fixed. Okay. Those are the 2 main variables. Okay. The third variable we have in our model is called a moderation variable. Okay. Moderation variable, we have the independent and the dependent. we are saying there's another variable that changes the original relation. And this is how we draw in our chapter number 2. Okay? In chapter number 4, they become like this. Not the same, no? This is called the conceptual model. This is called the statistical model. Okay. So later when you calculate the sample size, you're calculating sample size based on this model, not this one. Okay. Remember, we need to calculate the error number of predictors. We are although draw like this, then we test, we will test like this. Okay. That's why the sample size will follow this.
I mean, predictor,
Number of predictors.
better increase already.
Because you have indirect.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how we draw the moderator, independent and dependent. We have a moderator. We are trying to answer two questions. Who did it work for and when does it work? What is the difference is, this is the categorical moderator and this is the continuous moderator. Okay, categorical, continuous. So your moderator can be categorical or continuous. Like this. This one. We have an independent dependent with a moderator. Gender is a moderator. So what we are saying is the relationship between satisfaction and loyalty depends on gender. Okay. So this is the moderator. This is number 1. Number 2 is satisfaction and loyalty. The moderator is switching cost. Okay, now you have a moderator which is continuous. So both are moderators, but one is categorical, the other one is continuous. Okay, most of the literature is now moving to this kind of variable, not the gender, marital status, those kind of moderators. Okay, so think about it. Okay, so when we do moderation analysis, we are actually checking two things. The direction or strength. Okay, what it means is, originally this must be they should be working the same for both groups. But what they are saying is now the relationship is different for male compared to female. Okay, so that's the argument. So when we draw the model, like this. Okay, we have an independent and dependent, right? Satisfaction is your independent, commitment is your dependent. What is the relationship between satisfaction and commitment? No, not this one. From the theory.
My current two factors, Jerry.
No, from the theory, right? What is the relationship between satisfaction and commitment? Positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive relationship, right? Okay, but here there is no relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, this is empirical finding because theory says it is positive, but the empirical finding tells you there are no relationship, right? So this is where you are saying maybe there are some groups in the data. Okay, so we now introduce a moderator called perceived organizational support. Now you see the relationship changes back from a flat line to positive and negative. This is what is meant by changing the direction. Okay, changing the direction. Most of the time we will not be doing this in our area. What they are interested in is the gradient of change. So if you have two lines like this, there is no moderation. Okay, no moderation. What you are expecting to see is something like this. Okay. Here it doesn't change the direction, right? Both positive, but one is stronger, the other one is weaker. And this is what we normally hypothesize in social science management. Okay, so it's unbalanced. Okay, so
As long they are not, sorry, as long they are not parallel, consider it's moderated.
first it must be significant.
Yeah.
Then only we look at the power. Okay, really well. So one of the conditions before you introduce a moderator is your literature must be inconsistent or weak. Your independent variable, dependent variable, according to theory, they are supposed to be significant all the time. But the empirical literature, some people find them to be significant, some find them to be not significant. Sometimes they are significant, but the beta values are lower than 0.2. And those are indication of possible moderate.
Mean the R square over the different.
No, no, beta. This one, right? Okay, so this is the moderator. 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 Okay, so this is the This value is less than 0.2. They are still significant, they are not very strong. That is the condition. So before you introduce a moderator, you have to first show that the literature is inconsistent or weak. Any questions? Other studies, right? Previous study that you review. Let's say you study 10 relationships. 5 of them significant, 5 of them not significant. That's already telling you they are inconsistent. That's how you identify inconsistency. Okay. After we identify the inconsistency, how do we identify possible moderators? Let's say I want to introduce switching cost, right? How do you get an idea for the switching cost? Somebody has a moderator, everybody has a moderator. Somebody has a, yeah. How do you identify the moderator?
This literature review, I found out in other, because I was using communication model, which we that's where I found out in other countries when they're using that model, they have when they keep privacy, when they use cyber security involved, so they found out that their place privacy issue was a high concern. However, when I tested here, based on privacy, that's why I put it whether it can be a moderator.
Okay, one of the ways is looking at other areas of career, like psychology or communication. They have used this variable as a moderator, but the independent variables are not the same. Okay. That's one way to start. Number 2, you can also look at suggestion for future research. Okay. Previous research they have done, and then they suggest this variable can be looked at as a moderator. They have not tested yet. Okay. That is a possible something. Number 3 is we have papers called meta-analysis, right? Meta-analysis. They have done meta-analysis and we even identify possible moderators, but they have not collected data yet. They have only suggested, so we can borrow the idea. Okay. Okay. Number 4, we can do focus group discussion with some of the people we are interested in. Let's say we want to study strategy and performance. A strategy should look to performance, right? Good strategy will lead to good performance, right? But we find sometimes good strategy doesn't lead to good performance. We are looking for moderation, right? Okay, how do you identify that? You can do a focus group discussion. Ask the managers, I have good strategy, but I don't get performance point. They will give you some explanation. We need to take the explanation back to the literature. Okay. For example, we have strategy performance, right? Many years ago, when they first started, they said strategy will lead to performance. Okay, but afterward, they find that good strategy doesn't automatically lead to good performance. Okay, and then some moderators, right? What can be the moderator?
So this is considered maturity for legal sort of go with the study.
No. Group is only to identify them. They are not
to be.
okay. If you do mixed method, means you are doing both.
Yeah.
And you have to do both formally.
Yeah.
This one we are not doing. We are just asking them. What can be done?
Should we write in the literature or chapter 2?
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1, the focus start.
Preliminary
study introduction part.
Chapter 1. Okay. For example, we have product, right? In the 70s, 80s, you only sell in one country. In one country, yeah. But after it started with global, right? Now we have a problem called environment. Because you have different countries, different environment. For example, if your packaging is yellow in color, you cannot send to Thailand, right? Thailand, yellow is only for their king. Okay. We have a toothpaste called Daki, right?
The chicks are doctor.
Interesting note is that.
Daki, the original name is Daki. The original name is Daki.
Yeah.
The brand came from UK, very popular brand in UK, the Duckman. But it was not doing very well in Malaysia. Do you know why? Because Ducky is a very bad term in Malaysia. for Amrit. And then they changed the name to Raji. I was telling them that. Second swap, correct? The environment of data. So the name of the product is changed. That's why we need to fit the strategy with the So that's how moderator is introduced. Okay, another way is to attend some conferences which are big conferences in the area. For example, marketing, right? They have connected marketing association. And they have reverse that work. If you go to academy or management conference, you will need a risk. So what we said in this, what they do is sometimes they will present you work in progress. And during the work in progress, they will tell you some development that will happen in the future. And for example, one of my PhD students went to Hong Kong for a fashion conference. Editor of Journal of Marketing was there. And he was telling everybody that in the next 5 years for Journal of Marketing, I'm expecting to see manuscript using big data and experimental design. So the qualitative people got very upset. They already out of the room. The editor telling you, you said qualitative, I'm not going to look at it. Another incident was we have a called service quality factor theory. Service quality, and say percent. The guy who developed this Parasuraman.
So, Parliament project.
Parasuraman, right? So one of our Indonesian PhD went to Sweden for American Marketing Association, and then he was telling Parasuraman, in Malaysia, many people are doing service quality using your theory. And Parasuraman then him and told him, we have already moved away from service quality. Service quality has its own problem. Cold water. So the guy who developed the theory is telling you don't look at it. You only get this by meeting these people. Similarly, I met a Venkatesh in 2012. 30 years ago, first in Monash. And Monash paid him a lot of money. One day 5,000 US, second day 4,000, third day 3,000, 5 days 15,000 US. So he was in Monash. And I saw the poster, so I messaged somebody in Monash, can I attend the workshop? And then this lady called Sam, she messaged me, he said, I will smuggle you in. 15,000 US they are paying. They won't let anybody do that. So I actually took a flight in the morning, 8:30, 9:30 I arrived. My student took me for breakfast, and then third student was supposed to meet Venkatesh one-to-one. Their PhD student can meet Venkatesh one-to-one 20 minutes. She smuggled me in with this student. Then I asked Venkatesh, are you still doing technology adoption? This is 2012. He mentioned to me that you should move away from technology adoption. No journal will publish technology adoption. You should look at impact of adoption on the daily life, quality of life, those kinds of things. So I move away from adoption to addiction. So that's how you get information from the guys who develop the change, right? That's interesting. So don't go to conference where you present to yourself and the second change. We have that conference, right? One of our leaders went to Hawaii. The conference was just recently. He presented and the second chair, and then let's adjourn to the beach. So the second chair comes with a shot. You get no feedback. That's not a good conference to attend. Conferences, actually I don't like to attend. I only attend conferences now to meet people. Because proceedings are not counted at all in universities. But you will meet people like this. I go to the structural equation modeling conference, right? There's all the people I said I can meet them. Right? So that's why I go there to network. So this is how you identify moderators, 5 different ways. Okay? You have to write that clearly. Yeah. Okay. And then And this is how you draw the model, right? Okay, after you draw the model, what happens with, when you write your hypothesis, many people write satisfaction to loyalty is moderated by image. How many of you do that? Repeat that, huh? Satisfaction to loyalty is moderated by image. Right? Yes? I'm only to write, so I know already. Your drawing is already telling me that. Huh? You're not telling me anything else, right? You should not write like that. Huh? You have to explain how the moderator changes the relationship. Okay? So this is the paper that you can refer to. This is the question we asked. Should I hypothesize the form of my interaction in advance? The answer is yes. Not only should the existence of an interaction effect be predicted, but also its form, in particular whether a moderator increases or decreases the association between two other variables, be specified as part of the A priori. So you need to write this hypothesis clearly. Okay? We have been doing this from the 1990s. So this is how we can write. The positive relationship between satisfaction and loyalty will be stronger when switching cost is high. This is what we call as the directional hypothesis for moderator. This is continuous moderator. If you have a categorical moderator, you can say positive relationship between satisfaction and loyalty would be stronger for male compared to female. This is also direction. Okay. The one we don't write is this one. The cross. Okay. Body mass index acknowledges the relationship between exercise and weight loss, such that for those with low BMI, the effect is negative, and for those with a high BMI, the effect is positive. So we have a cross. We can also write hypothesis like this, but you don't write. Most of the time in our area, we write number one or number two. Okay. Number one or number two. Any question on that hypothesis? Okay. One of the things you do when your interaction is significant is called an interaction plot, right? We need to plot them. Easier to explain. So here you see this line, right? The gradient of change is bigger. This is stronger, this is bigger. This is what we are trying to portray in this diagram. Okay? This one we have some Excel templates available that we can draw quickly. Yeah? Okay. So this paper by Unix, they give you some issues that you need to think about. Number one is called the measurement error, lack of attention to measurement error, because when we do moderation, when we do indirect effect, this is your independent, this is your moderator. Let's say the independent is reliability is 0.7. Your moderator reliability is 0.7. Okay. 0.7 times 0.7, it becomes unreliable. Okay. Your interaction may not be significant because of this unreliability. So if you plan to do moderation, you should have here 0.8, 0.9, and here 0.8, 0.9. Then your interaction will be reliable. And this is one possibility that you need to think about. When you do measurement and right? Number one. Okay, number two is a problem with accounting studies. In accounting, they study top 100 companies. Okay? The dependent variables performance, right? You should not have any moderator there because these are all high performing companies. Okay? What it means is you must have high performing companies, you must have low performing companies. Then only the moderator will. This is what is meant by full range of possible values. You must have low performing companies, you must have high performing companies. Okay. Okay. Number three is when you do moderator with this categorical gender. By your gender, you're 90% female, 10% male. No need to do any comparison. I'm too small. Each group must have sufficient number. Not equal number, but must have sufficient number. You can do some analysis using G power. So this is another problem in moderator analysis. Many people forget that when we do moderator analysis, we have interactions. The more independent variable you have, the more interaction you will have. Sample size requirement goes up for moderation. Okay, for moderation. Okay, number 5 is the problem of artificial direct optimization. What is meant by artificial direct optimization is your moderator is continuous, but you categorize them into low and high using the median screen. This is actually not recommended. We tried in one of our papers. One of my co-authors from University of Malaya, she wanted to do multi-group analysis. And then I said, why are you doing this? He said, multi-group analysis looks very chunky. That's what the term she used. So because of that chunky, we had to suffer for 2.5 years and find it. The reviewer didn't want to let go. He said, you have a continuous variable. Why did you categorize? You lose information. But my co-author tried, after 5 reviews, finally we said, don't do that. If it's a continuous variable, you should run them directly. Don't do categorization. Okay. For moderator variable, we also have the problem of multi-collinearity. For a long time, I believe that this was a problem. When I went to the workshop with Pritchard Hayes, they said actually when you run your moderator effect, they are not using the actual interaction. They already standardized. So it is not a problem. No need to do mean centering now. Just run them together. Okay. Another problem with many social science researchers is when you do moderator analysis, do you run hierarchical regression? Hierarchical regression. That means you run independent variable to dependent variable. Then you add the moderator. Then you add the interaction line. That is incorrect. You should not be doing it. Because if you do that, the order of entry will decide which variable becomes in. So you should run all of them together, like what we do in structural equation model. Independent variable, the moderator variable and interaction together. You should run them all together. Okay. So that's this. Another problem is like this. When we run this model, many people what they do is they run this to this separately. They report hypothesis number 1, and then only they introduce the moderator. You cannot do that. You must run them all together. Because you already said independent to dependent is contingent on a third. Run them all together. Okay. Okay, for moderator, these are some of the literature you can look at. This is a seminal paper by Sharma. Let's talk about this. The more recent one is by Dawson and Alvinson. If you want the most recent one is by a guy called Rasuli Manish. He has done a review paper on moderation analysis. So you can look at it. Okay, any question on the moderation? Okay, we will take a break. Just
5 minutes break.
You want to make a show?
It's not. I see.
This fine.
No, why? Yeah, for example. We don't know. This one.
I think the reason behind that
What we like that, again, no. No. Some of the candidate are some do or not. What on engaging. Not better. What's the very, very simple way. The way. So it's so then ask the way. You know, yeah, you know. Sometimes, we are about to clarify the student reflect, how come my expert will not this one, right? One of the reasons of the way amongst ourselves. The African, we don't know about ourselves. We follow, are not unsure of the. Sometimes she has even possible. Then he not. And you sometimes just do. That's what we absolutely fighting. I'm not even. But wait, No, it's
You can type from the system, but only because you first location. I actually wish you the same one. Just all the ones that we have better case, something about it.
Three hundred eighty. 380. I didn't want to tell you what kind of.
What are you doing so far?
Okay.
They're really fast.
Okay, any questions on the modulation analysis before we look at mediation? Okay, next we will look at model mediation. Okay, mediation is going to look something like this, independent mediator, independent. This is the independent member, this is the mediator member, this is the independent. This is how you draw your model. Huh? So now this variable, is this variable mediator? Is this variable a mediator?
What's the question?
It can become together, can become.
Is this variable a mediator?
Yes.
Please.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, okay. Welcome to Malaysia. Everybody in Malaysia think. Everybody in Malaysia think. Three variables in a row, the middle variable is a mediator. Not necessarily. Okay. You can also have anything in number. I want to look at this variable. Okay. But I want to see what variable affect this variable and what this variable leads to. So I write H1, H2, finish. Okay. You can. So my problem is here. With online skills. Okay. I want to study. Let's say organizational commitment, right? I want to study organizational commitment. That is my focus. So when we do literature review, we identify variables here, right? You see? Obvious? This is the problem, right? What will be the problem with organizational commitment? When you write your problem statement, right? For organizational commitment, right? What will be the problem?
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction, huh? Or else?
Motivation.
Motivation,
Leadership.
Transparency.
transparency, yeah. And this is where we have a problem with problem statement. The problem is here. But you didn't explain this, right?
Yeah.
You are explaining.
Yeah, repeating.
Okay. This is the biggest problem with problem statement. No? Problem statement is it. You want to know why some employees are committed, some employees not committed. So if you see many of the employees are not committed, that's why you understand. So commitment is the problem. So we need to write about this, not this. Hello. It all comes from the literature. That's a problem. We have a certain. We actually had a workshop on problem with problem statement. People don't identify the problem clearly. You need to understand that. So if this is your problem, in your chapter number 1, your right up is related to this variable. Chapter number 1 right up is related to this variable. Okay. This one comes in chapter 2. This variable comes in chapter 2. Observation theory. Okay. You can also have a variable here called performance, right? If you stop at here, the question will be, so what? No? Just saying, you improve people's commitment, so what? No? You must also link it, right? So this link can be tested, or you don't want to test, also okay. But you have to show using literature that this variable leads to this variable. But I'm not going to test. You can do it, no? To answer the question also what? Okay. But another problem will be like this. I want to study this as a variable. This is my problem. Okay. Some employees performance very good, some employees performance not very good, right? So I want to study performance. To address this performance, I need this variable and this variable in a process model, right? Then only the center variable becomes a mediator. So now your chapter number 1 is no longer here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, the last one.
Okay, now you understand, right? Okay, the way to write also is different. Okay, not necessarily. So you are a magician. Huh? Just looking at a model only you know what it is mediated. Huh? That's good. Huh? It doesn't work like that. Huh? How do you know you are a mediator or a moderator in a paper? How do you know? Let's say they don't have drawing. Hypothesis, right? Put the hypothesis, hypothesis, right? And the way to write hypothesis for moderator, mediator is very different. That you can understand. Huh? So no need drawing also we can know whether it's moderator or mediator. So not necessarily like this. The center variable is the mediator. Okay. So if you have an examiner who don't believe you, then you can show a model like this. This is a paper published in MIS Quarterly.
Even at the research objective level, you should already know which is.
You can. But research hypothesis will tell you what are the techniques. So here we have this model. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So many 1, 2, 3, right? But they didn't test a single mediation. Because they don't have a research question for mediation. They only focus on direct relationship. So we can still do this. Right? Okay. Earlier I was talking to you about measurement, right? Measurement.
Yeah.
Okay. Here, when you measure them like this is called unidimension. They have an item to measure this variable. But here we have multi-dimensional. We have a variable measured by 3 dimensions. Okay. 3 dimensions, not item, 3 dimensions. Okay. Here we have another variable called intention, measured by 2 dimensions. That's why we need to understand whether they are unidimensional or multi-dimensional. Later in the analysis one. Okay, so this is example. Okay, for mediation, this is a very good paper for you to read. Since you all are very busy people, right? You don't have time to read. I summarize the paper for you. That's two important parts. Two important things. Number 1 is called a design. Number 2 is called a theory. Okay. Number 1 design, number 2 theory. Yeah. So when you are doing your mediation analysis, the argument is A leads to B, B leads to C. Okay. The data connection is not one question. Same time. That's one of the things you need to understand. That's called design. If you want to do mediation analysis, look for the theory that shows there are processes. A leads to B, B leads to C. Then we are question. Okay. We have theories like SOR, which is stimulus organism response. That kind of theory is a process one. Then you can argue that it's actually a process. Okay. So these are the 2 guys who wrote a paper called Barron and Kelly, right? Okay. When I met David Kelly in 2008 for lunch, right? He was telling me had to be there. This Barron and Kelly paper, which has 140,000 citations, right? This is not the best paper I wrote. I have a better paper. Jude and Kelly 1994. So the guy who wrote the paper is citing 140,000 times. He's saying this is not the best paper. You don't get this from the literature. The guy who wrote the paper is telling you, I actually have a better paper. But this paper is the one highly cited. That's how you get that. And this paper was rejected from 3 different journals before they finally published. So if the editors of that journal were alive, they will be cutting themselves. They lost 140,000 citations for that. So many papers are like that. Even Andrew Hayes was telling me, the paper they wrote, actually they were rejected in many other journals before finally getting published. Okay? So this is the story. Yeah? So this guy was a younger guy who was trying to push. In US, they have a 10-year system. Every 5 years, they get in. If you don't publish in top level journals, they will ask you to leave. In the fall. That's the system they have. So you are graduate to publish. So this is the paper they wrote. And in this paper, they actually clearly mentioned that mediator is the generative mechanism like this. You see, you can go directly to this person, right? But it takes a longer time. With the middleman, things get done faster. So the mediator is actually the mechanism that links your independent to the bank. Middleman here, okay? And this is the condition. For those who are doing mediation, you must first show that your independent dependent is consistent and strong. That's the condition before you look for a mediator. So this is an example of how you can visualize your mediation. This is a paper published in Journal of Marketing. This is like one of the top journals in the world. Very simple model, right? What they have shown is usually when deciding market orientation, market-oriented companies have better performance. That's already consistent. Okay? Market-oriented companies have very good performance. Okay? But after a while, you realize that it is not market orientation that leads to organizational performance. This is the mechanism. Market-oriented companies are innovation-oriented. That is why their performance is good. So now, in this model, this is not the most important variable. This variable becomes the most important. Why they perform well is because of this. Not. So this is how mediation models are developed from the literature. So if you see in the literature, we have this literature like store image based on loyalty. This is consistent, right? Okay. And then you see store image to satisfaction. Okay. And then you see satisfaction to loyalty, right? 3 different literature. What you are doing is you are putting them into a same model integrated. So you have this. That's how you put them together. 3 different streams of literature, you put them together. The only problem is here. We have a time 1, time 2, time 3, right? This is but you need more.
Is there a lot of those journalists start to reject?
No, now we will get that rejection. This one is supposed to be time 1. Okay, and then this time 2 and time 3. So we have 3 times. Or many journals allow you to do this 2 at time 1. This variable at time 2. That's where the time gets spent.
So therefore, based on what you just said, what you call that, the approach there has to be a longitudinal approach, right? So cross-sectional approach does not apply these days. Cannot apply. Is that the correct statement?
In psychology, I get that rejected also. Previously, I didn't have problem. Up to 2018 ending, I didn't have problem. 2018 was the first time I got a review from Information and Management. One review accepted the paper, another review said, you have cross-sectional data. Why did you test mediation? I tried to reply, but I still got rejected. That was the first time. But we submitted to another journal, Computers and Navigation.
Yes, certainly.
Yes, sir. Okay, but now it's more difficult. It's becoming more difficult for this kind of data. Time 1. All of them require at the same time. Like, dependent variable, moderating variable, mediating variable, control variable. So I had a webinar and they are telling me, we have been taught to do this all the time and we thought it was correct. Now you're telling us it's incorrect. I also did the same thing. But from the reading, it is actually not acceptable. But if you can, then you can try. But what you can do is we use the theory to explain. Say that the theory says A is to B, then we are actually testing.
The problem with this approach is that it's exposed to a lot of dynamic environment that we are facing. It's the changes that's being to the external environment. And then through the span of time, then there are a lot of big changes internally and externally as
That's
well.
why we need to know the time between time 1 and time 2. We can follow some journal articles. There are some studies they do one day. Some journal articles they have 1 week, some 1 month.
How do you measure temporal effect? You're just talking about 1 day, 1 month.
Because if it took so long means they forget what they answered in the first place. 1 day after means they remember what they answered. So it is a carryover effect, right? So identifying the number of days is not so easy. So we have some journal article that has suggested certain number of days, depending on the area of study. To do this, we must the same person must answer here, the same person must answer here, the same person must answer here. This is very difficult to do in the face. Very difficult. That's what I'm saying. So although this is there, not easy to do. Even I ask my Chinese students to do also, they say,
Especially when you're talking about big volume data, like for instance, when you do a survey for
but if they are doing data collection using the platform, they can pay the platform. If the respondent don't answer 3 times, they will not get paid. So they will answer. They will answer. This one very difficult to do in.
When we see wording, we do not wish also right.
No. But this one, the platform will do one. But which apply. Because they have a platform where they collect data for researchers. They have like US, they have MTech, right? In China, they have one Sing and another one. My student was studying it. But this is not easy to do. In real life.
it's going to be very expensive. You're going to pay for it.
To keep them in the study.
Pay 3 times.
Okay, so when we do mediation, we actually bring this thing up. First, we have when we run independent to dependent, C is called the total effect. Now the total effect will be decomposed into direct and indirect. Indirect is A times B. So this is the decomposition done in mediation, direct and indirect. Okay, so we have also used this method called bearing and hand effect. First, we regress independent to dependent. If independent to dependent is not significant, that's the end of your PhD. That was the end of the PhD. But most of the time it becomes significant, so you can follow to the next one. And then we have the second step. Independent to mediator must also be significant. Mediator to dependent must also be significant. Then only we go to step number 4. Okay, the problem with this is we are not testing the model together. When we draw the model, how many models do we have? 4 models, right? But when we draw the model, we have only 1 model. But when we test, we are testing 4 different models. So when you run multiple times, you have a problem called type 1 error. You will find some mediation when there's no mediation. This method is no longer acceptable. You should not be doing this method. Okay? Whereas and can be method. Okay. The other problem with where and can method is you don't have the value T value, right? You only look at step 1 and step 4 to decide partial or full mediation. Okay. Another method, another method is this one, so you run in regression, you copy down the meta value in the standard error, you plug into this calculator, and then they will tell you whether there's mediation or not. But this is also no longer acceptable because when we do mediation, we are interested in A times B, right? This A times B cannot be normally distributed. That's why we cannot do the online calculator. We need to do this method called bootstrapping the indirect. So this 2004 and 2008 paper was talking about this issue called bootstrapping. So Fritter and Hayes started writing this paper in 2004 for simple mediation, and then they also ran multiple mediation. But both these papers were very difficult to understand. They were very mathematical. And then in 2009, He wrote a very interesting paper with the title, Beyond Baron and Kenny. Since you Baron and Kenny, right? If you see the Beyond Baron and Kenny, you will read, right? So this paper actually changed the equation. Huh? And then in 2010, another paper by Zhao et al. The title was Reconsidering Baron and Kenny. These two papers actually changed the equation. From Baron Kenny method, people started to move away from this method to do bootstrapping the indirect. And this paper was very good because now the requirement independent to dependent variable is no longer required. No need to basic it. You can still go ahead to test. So this is the paper that says what we are saying is here. We should, however, try to explain theoretically. There is a relationship between X and 1.
That means we need to test first before we determine the mediator.
No, previously it wasn't, but now it's on. Now we can test the indirect.
How do we test?
Then in fact, they will give you one. When you run the models, they will give you this. This one, 8 times 3.
Which software do I need to use?
SPSS you can do, but you need an add-on call process. But you can use it in structural equation modeling, any software. So all software uses this method for bootstrapping the indirect.
What are the data? So,
So database on a model. Yeah, we already have the independence. We already have mediator dependent, but you need to draw them. The software will calculate for you the indirect. So that can be done quickly with the software. And then previously we were doing this Baron and Kenny method, right? This was a question somebody students usually email Andrew Hayes with a lot of questions. So what he did was he developed a frequently asked question website. Question number 1, question number 2, question number 3. This is one of the favorite questions. My advisor tells me I should use the Baron and Kenny method for assessing mediation. But my reading of the literature tells me this is a recommended mistake. What should I do? The answer is you have counted on an advisor for guidance and support. Now return the paper. All but the most common of the advisors are open to new ideas. And many are too busy or just don't care enough to say inform on recent development. Give him or her a copy of the relevant literature or a copy of my book and make your case. Try my Beyond Baron and Kenny paper for a slide. Very good advice, right? So if you have a very difficult supervisor, right? Make a copy of the paper and then push under the door and run up with it. He or she will pick up and bring it. Okay? The average down to the right. You have to bring your supervisor to your level, not go down to your supervisor level. Because some supervisors are not updated in terms of the methodology. At least some cases. Okay. And then previously we need to have this, right? A must be significant, B significant before we can test. This is also no longer required. No longer required. Okay? Because they are not part of the data. A is separate, B is separate. Okay? We can test that. No? Okay, so when in 2010 and 2013, when I went to Philadelphia, I actually drew the model, independent like this. I drew the model like this, then I asked him, if this is significant and this not significant, can I test for mediation? And his reply was, this is so Baron and Kenny. We think you're still following Baron and Kenny. For him, it's no longer required. You just type, you just test A times B, the indirect effect. It's significant mediation, not significant no mediation. Okay? Okay. And then full and partial mediation. Are you still doing it? Full and partial mediation no longer. I stopped doing this in a long time. Okay? We only conclude mediation or no mediation. No more full and partial mediation. Okay. So reporting becomes like this. So this morning I was talking about this. So we will have a C value, P value. We will have the confidence interval. We can also now calculate effect size for mediation. Okay. We can compute that. So we will use this. this and this to make our inference. No more p values. No more p values. So this is the way we calculate the effect size. This is from the paper by Pritchard and Kelly. Okay, Latouré, Pritchard and Kelly. We can now calculate mediation effect size. Okay, we also have this paper by Gao, which suggests that you can actually divide your mediation to complementary and competitive. But I usually don't like to do this, but sometimes you have reviewers who will request you to do this. Okay? But what you need to do is, you need to take the A times B times C. If your A times B times C is positive, then you have complementary mediation. A times B times C is negative, you have competitive mediation. And that's how you decide this complementary and competitive mediation. This is still going back to full and partial mediation. Okay. You don't have to do that. Okay, for mediation testing now, it has changed. You have been doing this, right? Number one. Independent to mediator, mediator to dependent, then we test the mediation, right? This is called segmentation. Segmentation. But we can also do that mediation here. Only one hypothesis. We are not interested in A to X to M. We are not interested in M to Y. We are only interested in X to M to Y. One hypothesis also okay. This is called transmitter. This can be done when you have multiple independent, multiple mediation. Because you don't have to tell the other relationship. Just focus on the mediation. This is a good paper for you to read. They also come up with the 7 methods of testing mediation. So in Malaysia, we have been using this, Barrett Kelly previously. Now we are doing bootstrapping. But there are another 5 more methods that you can explore. Okay? Especially this one. This one you don't have a software. You need to upload your data to the website and run from the website. This Bayesian estimation in the future is will become important. In SPSS already there. AMOS also we have. PLS they have not introduced it. Okay. Those are changes in the way we can start. So here they give you all the advantages and strengths and limitations of each of the methods. The easiest one is this method. James Mullight and Bragg. What James Mullight and Bragg say is, if you are independent to mediator significant, mediator to dependent significant, you already conclude their significance. That is mediation. No need to do anything. Okay? Similar to like Bragg and Kelly. Okay. Okay, so these are some of the issues in mediation which is more discussed by Arvind. Okay. If you have an example who says you must have a significant relation between IP and DB, you can show them this paper. This paper comes to you don't need IP to DB directly. No need to mask. Okay. They can do without now. And then magnitude of effect size, here. This one we already can calculate. Previously we don't have. 2017 we don't have. Now we already have. Okay, testing the direct effect as a condition for mediation. Just now we have IV to DB, remember? That is also not required. Okay. We can try independent to mediator, mediator to dependent, then mediation. We can do that now. Okay, including a direct effect without conceptual justification, this one we need to have hypothesis. We have to do direct, independent to dependent. Okay. Okay, number 5 is the most tricky one. This is the one we call redo. Testing mediator with cross-sectional data, right? It says no good. I'm also not very happy.
What if you change that to perceived mediation? Is there a sign?
Is
Perceived. Testing perceived mediation with cross-sectional data.
I still say it's not because in psychology they don't accept that. They say this is not correct. Design is not correct. But this one.
So I guess the rationale behind that is that you just want to see whether or not there might be some sort of element of mediation so that you can put it for future study sequences. Can you just do that as a trial?
I don't know, but I also do that, but unfortunately, many doesn't know is that. That's why I'm telling you. Some of my students also submitted and they get rejected. Like I always told you, right? Okay, so don't complain. Okay, the last one is here, like just now we have interaction, right? So the quality of the measurement is important. Measurement should be 0.805. Okay. So this is like the email I get. This lady called Becky was my PhD student, Ifan Chuba. She submitted to the journal called Human Performance, which is Web of Science Q1. Then the first sentence is very nice, right? So the editor said, you have a very nice title and your study looks interesting now. But then the second line is the manuscript deals with the potential interesting topic. I'm afraid, however, we will not be able to publish all. Result is same source, cross-sectionality. Okay. That's another problem. Okay. Then we have another former PhD student from Iran. She already had a PhD in housing building and planning. Now she's doing a second PhD in Germany. She's in psychology. So she wants to publish a paper. She wrote to me an email. Can you help me with some paper? So I started looking on the paper, and she submitted to this journal called Journal of Family Psychology. And she got that rejected. She was very upset. Because previously she submitted a paper to normal journal with mediation cross-sectional, right? She got accepted. So she said, the editor don't know what she's writing. Can I write it? I said, you laugh. But they become very confident because they publish paper with cross-sectional mediation. But in a not so good journal. This one is a better journal. So that's rejected. So she was not very happy. But this is a common problem now. I get many papers, cross-sectional mediation, they get rejected. That's rejected. So you may want to look at this issue. Okay, so these are what I meant by theory, which is process. So we have stimulus, we have organism, we have response, right? So we have a flow. This leads to this to this. We are saying we are testing the model based on the theory, or we can also use the system theory, input, process, and output. So we can use this theory to justify the cross-sectional mediation. Okay, for stimulus, organism, response, we can have one independent, one mediator, one dependent. We can also have independent, two mediator, one dependent. Also can, and then some control level. Some control level. Okay, this is a good paper for you to understand cross-sectional design. This author actually said, although cross-sectional design, there can be some justification for testing, but many reviewers don't accept this anymore. So maybe you have to look at this. This is a good paper for you to read. I actually use this paper to justify the 2018 paper. In this paper, they actually wrote this. All data collection and analysis have limitation. Reply to this authors. What they mean is, even if you use time 1, time 2, time 3, there is some limitation. If you use cross-sectional, also there will be limitation. We use SCM, also there's limitation. You use SPSS, also there's limitation. So that's why we say. So what he argued was 30 years ago in psychology, there was a theory developed using cross-sectional mediation. He said, if the paper was rejected 30 years ago, you don't have a theory now. Okay. And the other thing was interesting. He said, in psychology, when you collect independent, right? You don't have time 1, time 2, right? Dependent, you collect at the same time, right? Right? Should not be like dependent first, then dependent, right? But you don't have a question on independent, dependent. But now when we go to mediation, why are you requiring 1, 2, 3? I actually tried this, but it didn't work. I still got it. And so we submitted to another journal.
No, that's the reason why having a perceived mediating act would be a compromise, but you just do.
And again, try. I'm not trying. So these are the literature for mediation. Okay. And this is the most recent one. This guy Mustafa was very lucky. He has a student called Wang, who is very good at systematic literature review. When he was in Taylor University. So he has 2 papers in very good level on systematic literature. Any questions on mediation? Oh, that's mediation. Huh? Okay, so this is the introduction of mediation analysis from Taiwan author from the time we started. Now we have the latest one, ability rated 2017. This hair and all is actually the book, PLS Prime. Okay, the last level we will be looking at is called control level. How many of you have control level? Don't have moderator here, don't have regulation. But this is like these control variables are variables we don't want to study, but we need to control for them because prior literature already mentioned they are important. That's the idea of purification. So when we run this model, satisfaction to coming back, we get an answer, we get a beta 0.8 and the answer is 64%. So what we say is dog satisfaction explains 64% of the variance in coming back. This is what we conclude. But what happens is this one variable doesn't explain everything. We also have this variable like age, gender, tenure, members, that's the fact. Many studies have shown this will also affect your community. Okay, so now we point this variable here. Okay, so when we do this control, we say this is variable together. This variable explain this variable. And the beta value drops from 0.8 to 0.15, right? Because now we have 4 regression. This is where the problem starts. So if you have control variable, from the start you have to tell. These are the control variables I will remember. I need to identify. Okay, the problem is most of the time we are referring to literature from the West. In Malaysia, you should not be controlling tenure and age, right? Can you control for tenure and age? You can apply. Okay, tenure and age in Malaysia is highly correlated. You work in a company for the rest of your life, right? But not more on the genetics. But previously we were like that. Maybe 1 year. Most of the time you work in the same company for a long time. You grow older in the same company. So your tenure and age will be highly correlated. So we run into a problem called multi-collinearity. In the Western country, they don't have a permanent work contract. They can work in the company, go 1 day, 3 months, come back, or go to another company. They have, we don't have. We work in the same company. So before we control, we also need to get context. Which variables are important to be controlled. That's how we decide on the control variables. Okay, this is a good paper for you to refer to how they report the control variable effect. Here, there's a section on control variables and then they report the results. So before we, if you look at the area of study, we will have these variables that have been included. These are some of the categorical variables. We also have now continuous variables now. They are included in the area of study. So you need to look at the area of study. In other research, what variable they have control for. You only write a short paragraph. Previous literature have control for A, B, and C. We will also do that. No need to write a long story.
You write in chapter 2 also, right?
Yeah. Short paragraph on control level.
What is good for what is being used for control variables?
From previous literature, but you can also use your justification. Here you can see these are some of the domains we have control variable. What we show here is like this. This is based on justification. You see, most of the papers now are using justification to include control variable. What we do is the second one, citation. Previous literature use this, I also do this. These are the two. This one and this one. This one is justification based on your area of study. You say that some variable need to be controlled. We can also do. Let's control variable. Done. Okay, when we do control variable, one of the problem is you need to understand some of the control variable may be categorical. If it's categorical, you have to do dummy code.
1, 0, 1, 1, 0.
You have 3 categories, you need 2 dummy. You have 4 categories, you need 3 dummy. Okay. Like this variable here, education, right? One variable. But when I test here, I have 2, right? Here, natural and masters. We have a 3rd category, which is the benchmark. So this is how you need to run them in the analysis. If you have categorical variable in your model, you need to do dummy coding. 0 and 1. 0 and 1. This is the editorial we wrote on control variables. This is how you can import your table with the control variables.
Okay, what is the benchmark?
No benchmark. From here we are saying this is the result after controlling for this level. That's all. We are not interested in this part, right? We don't have hypothesis for it. We have hypothesis for this.
So this control will be discussed in chapter 5.
You need to write a short paragraph what is the effect on the control variable. That's it. You're not going to come back.
What is the effect on the control? You want nothing to make control. It's a question.
No, you don't have to write
Chapter 5, right? Actually, discussing
control variables is not part of your research question.
yeah.
They are not part of your model. They are just controlling them. So this control, we have 2 types of controller. One is called sampling control. The other one is called statistical control. This is called statistical control. Because after collecting data, sampling control is instead of studying small, medium, and large companies, we study only small and medium companies. Then you don't have to control for size. Or you study certain industry, right? Instead of studying all the industry, you need to control for industry. So we study only one industry. Everybody is in the same industry. And that's called sampling control. So you decide. Okay. Any question on control?
Is it a must in research to have control over?
Okay. In some areas, you don't have control variables. You need to know your areas. Like in technology, we started seeing people controlling some variables. But in HR, OB, there are many variables. We need to also look at the little design. Okay. Next is the theoretical framework. When we develop models, we have the first level and the second level. This morning I showed you that. We have the concept A leads to concept B. This is at the theoretical level. Okay. For example, we have reinforcement leads to habitat. This is the general theory here. We need to bring the theory to a measurable level. Then only we can test. We call them hypothesis. At this level, we call them proposition. So if you see papers published in journal, when they have a conceptual model, it is labeled as P1, P2.
Based on the samples that you have given, which thesis has good writing about conceptual development?
The paper by the thesis by Shella,
Number one,
Shella,
Shella.
who 0D, I think. 0D. That is a very good explanation. Okay. This is the concept they are measuring, but we bring them to measure. Okay, what is meant by reinforcement and habitat? Okay, if you reward the person, they will repeat the habitat. If you punish the person, they will not do the habitat. When you are younger, right? How do you know the capital is on? The value, the capital is on. You don't believe that, you go and touch. Next time you know you cannot touch the capital, right? That's all reinforcement. You do something good, they give you something. That is what we call it reinforcement. But that can be any behavior, right? Yeah. We are not tied to a behavior. So we are bringing them to something we can test. And this is the what we call them as hypothesis. So this hypothesis can be any parameter. So when you're doing your study, what parameter are you testing? We have mean value, we have proportion, we have variance and so on, right? What is the parameter you're testing in your model? Yeah. You learn in your study classes, right? Right, hypothesis, mean equals to 50, mean not equals to 50, right? That is testing the mean value. But when I'm doing study like research, right? We are not interested in the mean value, we are interested in the beta value. Beta value measures the relationship. Okay, so that is the parameter we are interested in. So you need to identify the parameter first and state the hypothesis before you start your analysis. Okay, when you're writing chapter number 2, right? The reason why we look at the literature is to identify the direction, whether to write positive relationship or negative relationship. So how many of you are still writing that is a significant relationship? If you want to write significant relationship, wake up one day and write lang. Only to look at the literature. Everything is significant, right? Why do you need the literature? And you also significant, right? That you can decide. The reason why we look at the literature is to identify the direction, positive relationship or negative relationship. The sign comes from the literature. Okay, the literature. Okay, so let's say we want to test the population. We want to study the average efficiency of the population at 90%. So this is the bigger population. This is the sample. From the population, we take a sample. If we calculate the percentage at 46%, no need to test, right? 46% is very much lower than 90%. So no need any test. But let's say you get 85% or 88%. We are not very sure. That is why we need a formal hypothesis testing procedure. Okay, so that's it. So we need to set the alpha value first. This one you can decide based on your one tail or two tail hypothesis. 90%, this is the critical value. 95%, this is the critical value. And 99%, this is the critical value. Where you get this number from your normal distribution table. We get this number. So when we run the analysis, if we have a two tail test like this is two tail. Left also, right also can. Left also can, but we can also catch one side. That is called one tail hypothesis. Okay, so this is the difference between the right tail. This is two tail. This is left tail. This is right tail. This is negative relationship. This is positive relationship. Smaller than, bigger than is positive relationship. So we need to write this hypothesis upfront before we test. So this is the idea of your statistical inference. First, we write the hypothesis. We state the criterion for accepting or rejecting, and then we collect data sample, write number 4 with the sample statistic, and we will respond. In some books, they have 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, depending on the textbook. The first step is, let's say we have this situation from a manufacturer. Usually, when you buy light bulb, right? They will tell you how many hours the light will work. Let's say 80 hours. Not necessarily it will work 80 hours. Sometimes it will be higher than 80. It may also be lower than 80. So we want to know whether this is working. So first we will write the noun and the alternate hypothesis. Okay, this depends on your direction. This is two things. Okay. Then next is you will decide where to accept and reject. Because two tail, right? Left and right. Then we will calculate the t value or the p value. We get the p value in the third one, and we get the p value of 3, right? What we will do is we will put the number 3 in this graph, right? So in this area we will get the number. So we conclude that it's a significant relationship. That's how we do hypothesis, right? If the test is not significant, you conclude no need to do any more action. Set the score. If the test is significant, then you suggest something to be changed.
From what hypothesis in the quantitative they go is
Now this is two tail.
yeah, but normally our social or one field
Positive or negative?
Unless it's mediating line.
The mediating also you can write one tail now.
Yes, sir.
So you decide. So once we have done this, right? When it's two tail, the conclusion is like this. So we have this, if your calculator value is smaller than or bigger than, it is significant. And that's how we decide on two tails. If it's right tail, then your tail is greater than. That's how we decide on one tail or two tail. Okay. Huh? Okay. Now, ranking hypothesis, we have direct relationship, right? Okay, first we want to write direct relationship. How many of you write satisfaction is positively related to coming? First one. First one? Second one, everybody write the second one.
Second one has.
Okay, that's the option you have. If you write like this, we don't know which is the management. I can also switch, right? Commitment is positive related satisfaction. Still is not possible. But if you write number 2, satisfaction has a positive effect on commitment. This is one thing. We know it is independent variable is satisfaction, the dependent variable is commitment. So I prefer to write like this. So I will make a lady called Jane Clover. I got the name. Okay, I did actually that research with a guy called Azad, the guy who developed the theory called PBT. Okay. I've been going to University Malaya for the last 8 years, last 10 years already, as external assessor for their colloquium. In University Malaya, you pass and fail your proposal defense during the colloquium. They have 2 external examiners and 2 internal examiners. All 4 must pass before you pass. Okay. They will give you 1 chance for the second time. The first time fail, second time fail, they terminate. And you have to do this within 1.5 years. That's the system they have in the same line. Many years ago, they had money. So they invited 1 internal, 1 external from Malaysia, 1 more from overseas. And 2 internal. So 4 of them. And the first time I went was many years ago. I was very excited. University right? Top university in the world, right? There were 8 people who presented. All 8 failed. 8 people presented. All 8 failed. There was a record. My partner was this lady. I didn't go back. First presenter presented, you were saying, I will do random sampling. Second presenter, random sampling. Third presenter, random sampling. Then Jane said, stop. You don't try for bullshit. You know, I cannot pay that. Okay. Most of the studies cannot do random sampling. And now she says, all of you have a problem with your research method. Everybody is writing random sampling when they cannot do random sampling. That's how we started. Okay. And head of department was a guy called Ghazali. Prof. Ghazali. But he was very happy because we actually gave them some feedback. Okay. So he said, I will invite you again the next month. So the first time I went was 2 days. After that, the head of department told me, every time you come, I just tell them Ramayana is coming again. The number drops automatically. So from 2 days, it became 1 day, and now it is only half a day. So those who are not prepared, they don't come. So the head of the department become automatically whether they are ready or not. So that's the system they have in University Malaysia. And they invite very good externals. One of them is the chief editor of Information System Research, one of the top journals in information from Hong Kong. So I was traveling on the same van which is from the venue to the hotel. And then I asked him a question, how was the session? And he replied, terrible. Many years ago, at least there were one or two who were good. At this time, I didn't find any. This is like the top journal in the world editor. I don't know why, but somehow we will pass because we take the average of all forms. Internal to external, right? Everybody give your rating, and then they will take the average. Anything more than 65, you pass. So some people I failed after that, and then they told me because the average is more than 60. Now I give that low percent. Ensure that they fail. Okay, sometimes we don't want to fail a candidate, but they are really bad. Okay, then you have to stop them, or else they think they are correct. And that's a problem with the examination. Okay, sometimes you have to tell them. You actually also sending a signal to their supervisor, to the both parties. Okay, so this is gain from us. Okay, for direct hypothesis, this is how you write. For moderation, this is already explained, and for mediation, we also have direction. You have been writing this, right? This is two tail. Okay, but you can also write like this. One tail. Okay, one tail. There are many papers now writing like this. Okay, so we can also change. So you decide. Okay, any questions on the hypothesis statement? So for direct relationship, different from mediator, the different way of writing. Moderator also very different.
About the unit analysis. So for the EV is the organization performance. Can we use individual or not?
I will say to black. So they understand my question, right? You need or analysis with the organization, but you buy data from individual. Doesn't make sense, right?
Even the theory also respond, some of the theory is really mainly for organizational level.
Some theories are for organization level, some theories are for individual level. If you don't know this, you should not pass. That's my take on this. Basic understanding. One of the things I will ask my PhD student to do is tell me the theories people have used to study the same year. You want to study chatbot adoption. Other researchers have used which theory. And then we decide on a theory to focus on. Then only you can move on. Because your contribution is based on that theory. What variable you are adding. Some people start with the variable, right? Do you do that? To identify the variable, right? And then you will have a long list of variables, right? What theory you want to use? No theory will have so many variables, right? So you start with the theory. Theory already has some variable, right? We will add some variable to the model. That's how we identify our contribution.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So in terms of the correct effect, if I input positive, does it mean to say that my p-value will change from 0.05 to 0.025?
Okay, the software will give you the p-values, calculation of p-values. This is another thing. This is a problem with many services. Yeah. Okay, this one. So let's say we have a model like this. We have three independent variables. We have one dependent here, dependent, and one more dependent. And this is an outcome. So when we have this model, we write this for hypothesis.
Yeah.
Okay, right? And
Yeah.
Okay. And now we have the results. Let's say my alpha is 5%. Alpha is 5%. Okay. And out of these four hypotheses, which ones are
solutions. What is the question?
Okay, we have this for, variables, right? We can show the hypothesis we are writing,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Yeah.
And then we get the result from the topic, right? This is the,
Which was underneath?
which one is it?
It's significant. It's significant as for significant. It's for.
Which for?
Which one?
Okay, you can also call your supervisors, or because supervisors for support, we call it their. Okay. Number 4, what?
Yes, yes.
Significant, right?
Significant.
Significant. Yeah,
Significant, number 4.
number 4. Which one?
You have a major correction,
Uh-huh.
You have a major correction. Number 1, number 2, and number 4 is it? Number 1, number 2, and number 4 is it?
Because you
P value you have to divide by half.
Yeah.
Because the software that used like SPSS and DMOS doesn't divide by half. They are automatically two-tailed. And they are automatically two-tailed. Yours is not two-tailed, right? It's one-tailed. So what you do is you look at this number. T value, right? For one tail, anything greater than 1.645. Two tail is 1.96. Okay, so what happens is like, this is your two tail, right?
Yeah.
So 1.8 is here, right? Because it's less than 1.96. Okay? But you're not testing this, right? You're testing one tail, right? So 1.8 now becomes here. Okay? This is one tail, right? So the P value, the software doesn't divide by half. You need to divide manually. Most software, but now in the software called Smart Parallel, they will divide by half. You know how to use Excel, right?
So when you say divide by half, you're referring to P value, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. This one you will take.
Okay, but that is, that's 1.645 there.
Anything greater than 1.645. So it is 1.858, right? Okay, you go to your Excel, we have this function. Function called fx, right? So we have this t distance, right tail and two tail, right? So if we use the two tail, okay, then we put the 1.858. And the degrees of freedom n minus k minus 1, that's there we put as 2. What will happen is they give you a p value 0.06, right? Okay?
Yeah.
0.06. Now you run the same analysis, you use your function, but now we take the right tail. So when we run the right tail, we put the same thing 1.858. And then your degrees of freedom is also let's say 200. Now you see the different number. That's how the software. The software doesn't understand. Okay. This is for your two tail and one tail.
Very sure, yeah, just not how you do.
Okay. Then you are doing the two tail, you take this one. Your values are coming from the table. That's how I showed you there. 1.858. We can also take 1.751. If you take the 1.751, we put the 1.751. And then this is your sample size minus your number of minus 1. And minus k minus 1. So we have 3 independent. Let's say our sample size is 200. 200 minus 3 minus 1. 196. So I can put a 196. So what will happen is I get the 0.08, right? That's the same number you got just now. This is for two tail. This is for two tail. But if you run the right tail, it will be half.
straight away we divide by 2.
You can. You can. Okay. This is the common problem up to today. People are making incorrect conclusion based on the p value direct. You need to divide by half.
And technically, if you use Smart TLS, you don't need to worry about that.
Because Smart Parallel, they have an option, one tail. That is the only option, that's the only software that allows you to change. MOS doesn't allow you to change. SPSS doesn't allow you to change. Your result from regression analysis is based on 2 things.
Sorry, from just now you're saying that this value is 0.08 is okay.
Yeah.
So that's why we still need to divide by half.
No, you run the same analysis just now, right? X. Just now we had number here, right?
Straight away, divide by 2, that's what we've done for me. Straight away, straight away, use it, okay.
That's it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, this one, right? This is the number 1.751, right? Okay, so you run this same analysis with the right key, right? Okay, and then we click OK. Now we put the number 1.751. Okay, and then this is n minus k, minus let's say 196. And what will happen is we give you half. Yeah, so this is how you can recalculate back the p value. But the software can do that if we are using SmartPLF. MOS and SPSS doesn't do this. So all your result in regression is for 2 things.
From why, when compute correlation, they give you choose 1 or
Only,
now in SPS, but for regression, they give why,
I don't know, for correlation there, an option.
yeah,
Pick 1 tail or 2 tail.
Yeah.
Regression, don't have.
yeah.
This is confusion. So many people actually look at the p value directly and then conclude significant or significant.
Yeah.
Most of the workshop you attend, they will tell you look at the p value directly. So this is one of the problems I see with many PhD students.
So the 0.04 is the
Bigger.
key value. So you check against what was that sample?
0.05.
So this check against 0.05.
That's it. 0.05 or 0.01. Up to you. 0.05 is the lowest. But this one is one of the problems I see with many people. Still now, they are actually using the 2 tail to test one thing. It is good test. Okay. Okay, we will stop here for today.
The big very jam.
Different. Now at 7 probably no different.
You guys will really laugh. Yeah,
You want to show again?
yeah.
Because it's mixed in.
And every time I take photo,
Okay, sure, okay.
That's the first time we start close together.
Okay, sure.
Some of the participants have
yeah, run up,
come over.
come over here. On the top lah.
1, 2, 3,
小飞，有马戏团在。
Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Subject content now.